Perfect. I assume we're live. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the 200-400 grudge match between Doug Polk and Daniel Negreanu. This is the 20th session, and Doug currently holds an $814,000 lead, just over 20 buy-ins. It's been 10 days since the last session wrapped up, with Doug and Daniel deciding to take a break last week for online WSOP and Doug's birthday. I'm Mike Brady, the VP of Upswing Poker, and I'm thrilled to be back with y'all. Today I'm joined by Cash Game Pro and streamer Ryan Risk. Welcome to the stream, Ryan. How you feeling?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
For sure. Yeah, hope you're ready to sweat some big pots, some cards, etc. Some chat even.
Definitely.
So I know momentum is going to be something the chat talks about today because, you know, there wasn't any sessions for 10 days. Chat loves to talk about momentum. So throw your thoughts there, guys, right off the bat. How do you think this changes the momentum of the match? Doug was winning a few sessions. Daniel had kind of a comeback punch right at the end there to win 150K back. Does that matter? Is there some sort of momentum change there, guys? 3-bet from Doug on the left gets through. Ooh, it's good to be back. Haven't said that in 10 days.
Feels like it's been a while, eh?
Yeah, it really has. Speaking of, guys, after this session, there's going to be 2 more in 2020. We're going to have one on this Wednesday. That's the 23rd. We're also going to have one on the 28th. That's a Monday. Then they're going to take off for New Year, obviously taking off for Christmas, as you would expect. No one wants to sully their Christmas with a 6-figure loss.
Was this check down? Oh, C-bet check down on the right?
Yeah, min C-bet from Daniel on the right, then check down. Doug's going to go for a river probe.
Seems pretty good. Like reps ace-x pretty well here, and then obviously tons of like some slow plays, some queen x. I'd be interested in how thinly he value bets that size for.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think he'd really bet a queen, but maybe that gets mixed in there a little bit for some reason or another.
Depends depends how much he thinks like D-Negs is like just range c-betting that board or whatever, right?
Right, for sure. First showdown on the left, Daniel's going to win it with aces and jacks. Nice little 4K pot to him. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Ryan Risk, he goes by Poker with Risk on Twitch, Twitter, wherever you want to follow him, Instagram as well. What you use any other platforms?
Twitch, I'm actually like starting a YouTube bit now too, so Twitch, YouTube, nice. And Instagram are the main ones. Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, he's a successful cash game player, guys. He plays in some of the toughest games in the world. 500 NL Zoom on PokerStars, hops in some 1K NL as well. So you're going to get some good insight from him today. Definitely knows his stuff when it comes to cash games.
I actually, playing poker for a while, you get bored every now and then. So I like dabbled in heads up for a little bit. And where do you think I would have learned my heads up skills from, Mike?
I'm going to guess you chose upswingpoker.com, Doug Polk's course.
Yeah, I took Doug's course and was like, it's cool. Like, I didn't play heads up very long. I only played it for like, a few months, but definitely helped my game overall, just like being used to these more wide range spots that most 6-max regs aren't used to.
For sure. Yeah, there's so many spots in 6-max where it's just like, oh, well, their whole range is a good hand. So, whoops, I guess it's not quite as fun in certain spots.
Yeah, and like teaches you how thin you can value bet in different spots. And just like, it's like, it was definitely fun. And like, I'm glad I did it for a few months. But back to the 6-max now. But I like to think I'm better than your average 6-max reg at heads up.
Yeah, I believe it. Just how confident you're coming off, I believe it. Daniel wins a nice showdown on the right with top pair. By the way, those of you on Twitch, I'm really sorry for those of you on YouTube, but for those of you on Twitch, emotes are here. If you subscribe to the channel, you can get your dongers out, get your cookie jars out when someone gets a bluff called, white flag when someone gives up on a bluff. What else we have here?
Getting that emote game going.
Finally, yeah. Throw a Bazam in the chat when Doug wins a big pot. Obviously, dongers are appropriate at all times, particularly when Doug is winning. And then if you're a tier 2 or tier 3 sub, you get an extra emote. Tier 2 gets a Doug emote. Tier 3 gets the Leet emote. 1337. The elusive Leet. Which Doug did break one of those out in the challenge for you guys. I don't know if for those of you who didn't see it, you missed something special.
Just the one?
Yeah, he just threw in one. I think he's already like kind of deleted it from his brain.
Yeah, I think there's probably bigger things to focus on than getting that c-bet size in.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when you have the tables in big blinds like he does, and you like have to like do you have to do like 3.45 big blinds or whatever it is.
Yeah, that was like the best thing poker sites have done though, is changed it to big blinds for like online players. It's so much like just easier to think.
Yeah, for sure. It's fantastic.
Especially for like micro stakes players, you move up to like 16 and L, and you have to like do those random calculations. It's just like, what the heck?
That's a ridiculous level. Did you come up through the ranks like from that low?
Like I started at, say, I don't think 16L was a limit when I started, but I used to do like some stream challenges, like bankroll challenges, and so when we get to 16L, I always felt like so just out of sorts because it's just such like random increments.
It's really weird math. It's like in a tournament when you get to like 3,500, 7,000 or some weird level like that.
Yeah, and I feel lost enough in tournaments as is. So
right,
yeah.
For sure.
All right,
three bet from Doug on the left.
They checked down and Doug won with like a. I missed that last spot, but it's not a big deal. I was just curious that DNX just checked down and gave up on ace high. So I'm just curious what he had there.
Yeah, I saw that Doug had like a 7. Let me check that one. Yeah, 9-4-3, 7 ace, just checks down, flush draw on the flop.
Yeah, so probably like king high or small pair from DNX, I guess.
Yeah, you would think. Meanwhile, on the left, we got the kings, jack 7, 2-tone, or 2-tone flop, 2 diamonds. Check, check in this 3-bet pot. Now we got the ace of clubs on the turn. We got 2 flush draws.
I would expect like some big bets here if Doug does delay, but
he does go for the check. A lot of good hands in his range. That kind of what the driving factor behind betting large there.
Yeah, like there's just not much. Like you could obviously have a block size if you want to like build, but it just seems like more efficient to just go like bigger check on the turn and not really need to complicate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And these spots are always interesting. Like who wants to try and rep the stronger 10x advantage and then being able to bluff catch effectively versus this is always like, this is like the fun stuff in heads up where ranges are pretty wide. It's like who has the 10x advantage and like which blockers are relevant when you're hero calling.
Right. Yeah, it's very tricky and oftentimes counterintuitive, I would imagine.
Yeah, like having a hand like Jack 9 is actually like a better hero call in a lot of ways here, because if Doug's going to get to the river, he's going to have hands like Jack 10 and stuff more often than other 10x.
Right.
Because they'll probably bluff with other random 10x earlier in the hand.
For sure, yeah. Turn especially, you'd expect. Well, flop even. A lot of them are going to have backdoor straight draws or straight draws. Daniel does win that showdown with a jack. Ryan sort of called it there. 4th pair is going to drag it. Out pipping Doug's 9s.
Curious to know what Doug bluffs the river with them there too. Obviously, like Doug knows like that part of the tree way better than I would, but it's just interesting to know what he would decide to bluff on that river if he's not using 9s.
Yeah, he could have the lower pairs. I mean, they're technically better, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm. And he could just think like DNX doesn't fold enough on that run out, so like,
yeah, for sure.
Just his bluffing frequency down a little bit.
Pot on the right, Daniel double barreled on jack 6-5 2 clubs, turn 10 of clubs. Doug called twice with the 5-4 4 of clubs, so he had, or 5-4 5 of clubs, so he had a pair and a low flush draw, rivered the trips, and it goes check check. Doug takes it down. Interestingly though, Daniel went for a 1900 into, let me make sure I'm seeing this right, 1900 into 1900 into 4700 on the turn there. So that's a pretty interesting double barrel size. You don't see 40% too often on the turn and river.
That's like DNeg's preferred sizing a lot of spots, right? That 40% bet, he likes to use it.
Yeah, he wasn't using it at all. Like it was just, he had some other sizes. In C-bet specifically, he was using min and 3/4. Now he's mixing in that 40 quite a bit. The other ones still get used though. Now we have Doug check raising on the right versus Daniel's a little over 4th pot C-bet.
See the call. And Mark's Banger's asking, do they read the YouTube chat as well? It's like, yeah, we'll try and look at both chats. It's just, a lot going on at any moment. So, but we'll get to as many questions as we can.
Yeah, our order of priorities, guys, is the cards. That's going to be our number 1 priority. Then number 2 tends to be the chat from there. Sorry, guys, we cannot put you over the cards. I know you want to hear about like what moisturizer we use and all those kind of questions you like to ask, but not happening today. Tweet at us if you care about that. I'm at MBradyCF. at Poker with Chris.
Which chat have you found more trolly, Mike? The Twitch or YouTube?
YouTube by a mile. I will $8,400 pot going to Doug there on the right. He goes for the check river trap with the trips.
It went check, call, right?
Check raise from Doug on the flop. Then he like block sized the turn for like a third, and then he was clearly going for the check raise on the river, considering that line. Yeah, YouTube's quite trolly. It is also a little bit of a weird comparison because it's Doug's YouTube audience. Like, you just kind of have to imagine. I mean, I love you guys so much, really, but man, they're a trolly bunch.
Yeah,
as they should be. I mean, if they're fans of Doug, like, you got to be a troll.
I'm sure Doug's proud of how trolly his audience is.
Yeah, sometimes at least. Rivered pair of eights with his flush draw on the left. Doug gets a nice value bet in there. So that was a check on the flop. Then Doug probed the turn, call from Daniel. Then river, he hit the 8. Pretty strong hand in that spot. He goes for the value bet. Gets called.
We kind of talked about where, the less experienced heads up reg isn't that comfortable taking that big size on the river with a river 8.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's such a strong hand, though. It's like hard to be better than an 8 there.
Exactly, yeah.
First 4 bet of the match here. What do you reckon is the bottom of Daniel's call range versus that river bet a moment ago?
So he checked.
Wait, hold on 1 sec, because we got an all in. Fold.
It's folded. He checked flop, right? And then call the call.
Exactly.
It's kind of interesting to see how he can like he can just bet that board so much. So it's kind of, it depends on his flop sizing, what he's checking back flop with. Like, it depends how strong he's actually checking flop to begin with, right?
Right. It's unusual because it's not really a spot you would check flop too much, right? In general, like, you should check very rarely, if at all.
Yeah, like, so when you say how strong, it's like, it depends. He's either going to have like super strong traps, or he's going to be forced to call down just like ace highs, because that's just how he's constructed.
Or even like king high, maybe, if he's not checking ace high. It's a pretty tricky question. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Doug wing a nice little pot on the right. 1 bet goes in post flop. He's got bottom pair.
Bet check on the left, right?
Yes, I believe so. Daniel going for about a third on the flop.
I can see like blocks, or I was gonna say either a block or a big bet here, obviously, on this run out.
See what Daniel decides to do.
It's cool to see like how thin Doug will go for value in that spot.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know exactly how thin he'd go. I could see something as thin as like a 6 blocking for value, right? Potentially.
Yeah. Especially because he knows D-Negs likes to make those hero calls, so give him a good price and you get a little value on the river.
Yeah, sure, why not? By the way, quick shout out to Gazzy B. He's not in the chat. He was actually supposed to be here today with me, you guys. Ryan was nice enough to step in. Unfortunately, he had to drop out due to an illness, an illness that's going around. He got it. Not feeling too good. He's okay, but not feeling too good. So he might be here for the Wednesday stream. Yeah, just so let's get some dongers out in the chat for Ryan for stepping in. He was clutch today. Throw some dongers out in the chat for the you subs.
Appreciate that. Also, someone in the YouTube chat is complimenting my eyeliner, so that the YouTube troll as
normal stuff.
Yeah.
There are the dongers. Good to see him.
Three bet on the right. Oh, the 4 bets are coming out early today.
Indeed. See if Daniel decides to stuff it in Doug's face again. He does just call. 7-6-4. That's going to be, Doug's still going to have the advantage in general here, but that's going to be more of Daniel's board in terms of the kind of the speculative hands that hit.
Definitely. I'm assuming he'd use like some small sizes here or checks.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like, do you think there's any merit to jamming here with some hands?
Yeah, like basically, there you go. It's either a really big size, it's really big, smaller check. It'd be kind of weird to see like a half pot.
Whoa. Interesting one.
That is definitely interesting. Like,
Wow.
I guess he definitely assumes that like D-Negs is gonna overfold a bunch to that with like some ace highs and stuff. If you just like
Right.
think the hands that are supposed to call it off. But
Yeah,
definitely
interesting.
interesting line.
Wow. So Doug just with the gut shot and the backdoor flush draw there, jamming for 1.5x pot. Daniel with the pair and open ender, of course, going to have to call that one. Interesting play from Doug there. Definitely going to have to ask him about that one. I mean, I think it certainly makes sense, especially if he thinks he's going to get overfolds from Daniel there.
Yeah.
But it could also be one of those hands that Doug says maybe he comes on afterwards and he's like, maybe that was bad, and then so we'll find out if it wasn't one of those or if he's confident to play.
That's the benefit of playing poker for many years is you can play forever and still have no idea what you're doing in some spots and never know if it's the right play. But he has like deceptively a lot of equity there as well, right? Like he has a gutter, he has a king, and he has a backdoor flush draw, so he doesn't need that much fold equity for that to work.
Right. I mean, there's actually a world where he gets called by a worse hand there too. Well, a worse hand in absolute value. I think it would probably be a favorite if Daniel had a hand like, the classic like 10-9 of hearts there or something like that. It's not folding, and Doug actually gets it in good with the king high. And then, yeah, like you said, if Daniel doesn't have a hand like 5-6, Doug has a fair bit more outs. 5-6 not the best hand to be up against. Not the worst, then again, but
it's also interesting because I would hope not. It's not the case, but like in a lot of ways, D-Negs' hand is easier to call than a lot of other parts of his range. So I'd be curious if he thinks Doug's under bluffing that line, which it's kind of hard to say Doug's under bluffing a spot, but like make some hero folds with some of his weaker overpairs in that spot. Like obviously seems crazy, but there's like if he just assumes Doug's range for shoving flop is too strong, if you put that in a sim, you're probably supposed to fold some of your low equity overpairs and continue more of the hands that you have there.
Yeah, that would be pretty interesting if that is the case there. I could definitely see it being the case.
Because like obviously Doug has that hand, and as soon as you see that hand, you don't fold overpairs. But if you think Doug's range is too equity driven, then you're supposed to fold some of like your low, like the hands that are just crushed against bigger pairs and then not doing that well.
Yeah, flipping versus because a lot of people will play that this way they play that spot to sort of give more background for the people watching. Like the way a lot of people play that spot is if they're shoving, they're doing so with overpairs that are like going for value, and then their quote unquote bluff range is just like strong combo draws essentially, or maybe an open ender with a backdoor flush draw, something like that. But that's like the bottom. And those hands have 30, 33, 35% equity versus like a weak overpair. So it's you get to play really tight when that is how your opponent's playing. So it does kind of make sense for Doug to have some kind of more hands that benefit more from getting the fold basically in his shoving range.
Yeah. Like obviously Doug's gonna find those spots. I wonder what he needed to roll for that play. Like if that was just like low on the RNG, just like I gotta do it, or if he was just like fist pumping it in there.
Yeah, that's a question I know he won't answer, but it would be interesting to know the answer. Trip Kings for Doug on the left, going to win a nice little 7K pot. Jimmy's and I are asking if Daniel's going to be playing differently because of the long break. I mean, you would think yes, because you think yes, and in theory better because he should be studying, and like Daniel's fairly new to this game, so every hour he puts into studying heads up is going to be fairly consequential, relatively consequential compared to someone who's studying more at the margins because they've more familiar with the fundamentals. Big pot on the right, as I'm talking about that, 12.7K. This is Doug double barreling in a single raised pot. In other words, Doug opening the button, betting flop and turn.
This is the spot where Doug's gonna, when he does have rips here, it's gonna be like the ace deuce with the ace of hearts and stuff like that he like purposely set up for this spot. Obviously he's gonna have this size as well. I was just hoping for just the big jam on the river so we can get in those like crazy spots.
Understandable to always root for the big action for sure.
Yeah. I mean, this is still a 20K pot. I guess that's not small for sure.
See what Daniel decides to do here. He's up about a buy-in today so far. Chipping away at Doug's lead.
This is like, yeah, that seems reasonable, obviously. Curious what kind of blocker hand. I'm assuming he's going to call mainly there with blockers. Those are the hands that are worth a lot to see showdown, to just see the types of hero calls he's making. Obviously, Doug's got tons of those now, but they're cool to see, to just see how your opponent's constructing that hero call range.
Yeah, definitely very important to see that kind of thing. Doug does get the showdowns.
Has DNeg's been using any, like, you kind of talked about this thing, but is he using any like big flop bets, like pot or bigger?
No pot. I think I might have seen one. Like, I could definitely count on one hand how many times he's done like a same single raise pot. Like, very few. I mean, here's a classic overbet spot with on a very dynamic 2-flush draw board, and he does find it. So good for Daniel there.
It's probably like the most high frequency turn overbet spot. Like that card exactly. The queen bringing in the backdoor flush draw would probably be like the biggest overbet card on the deck.
On that specific board, or are you even saying just a general trend?
Like definitely that board, because like just when the queen is so disconnected from Doug's range, and then brings in a lot of draws, and just has a big like DNeg's gonna have the big card advantage in that spot. Just like you'll see a ton of big bets and checks in that spot.
Oh.
See, 3-bet, C-bet, raise flop on the left.
That one I missed. Yeah, it must be 3-bet C-bet raise based on that pot size.
It's kind of a big raise from DNeg's. Like for the situation on this texture, I don't really think you need to raise this big. So kind of interesting. Like it's just hard to balance that big of a size with like the sufficient bluffs, and like he doesn't really have like outside of a jack, he doesn't really have that many hands that want to go that big. So I would think a smaller size is better than the one he took there.
Yeah, in 3-bet pots, you tend to see the smaller raise sizes in general. It's not like this is a crazy dynamic board or anything.
Yeah, it's not like a board that favors DNeg's, and like he might have like a slight advantage in 2-pair, but not to the point where this board favors him in any way. Yeah, and like that one would be really weird to see, like to take a big raise on that flop and then get this run out and lose to that hand. And like as you can see, like the big raise isn't even that efficient because Doug was able to continue with just a gutter out of position.
Right. It's like he could have raised to this more the size you were talking about, probably like a handful of blinds smaller, gotten a fair bit more efficient price, and then Doug still obviously calls that hand, but he still folds those hands that are just like pure air balls that were kind of folding to the size anyway. So
yeah, like you make it. Like the best part about heads up poker in these spots is like you get to play in position a lot. So when you go that big, you're kind of like taking away your positional advantage in a spot where it just doesn't seem necessary. So like just curious, that would be like a really interesting one to see what he's raising with for that size.
For sure. Doug winning a nice size pot on the right, getting a nice value bet in on the river with a pair of 10s on that Jack 10 board. That wasn't the order of the board, just the relevant cards.
We've been getting asked a fair amount about how long it would take to have a good but not great concept of GTO, and like the more you study with solvers, the more you kind of learn that like you don't really need to play a GTO because there's so many strategies. Like obviously everyone tries to like strive to a GTO strategy, but it changes so much with the parameters you put in. But it's really interesting is just like you see there's so many different things that don't lose EV, so it kind of allows you to play so many different styles. So it doesn't really matter if you're playing the optimal style as long as you're playing a good strategy well. So it doesn't really, as long as you kind of understand how poker works, you'll kind of have a general sense. If you understand equities and hand strength, then you'll kind of know a sense of how GTO works in every spot.
For sure. I have something to add to that in a moment, but we have a check raise pot on the left. Daniel's following through with a small bet.
This is good. I like this size for sure because, like, whatever Doug has is not loving life or loving life on that turn. So like the small bet size makes it most difficult.
Yeah, for sure.
And now I would expect some jams, obviously, and then some biggish bets. Like blocks don't really make any sense on this run out. So I would expect like 3/4 or jam, basically. Does go for the check.
It's got a strong flush. It's going to drag the pot. Interesting hand to check the river with. See, it seems like when you block the king, you'll want to do the betting yourself because the hands that bet call, you kind of block heavily. But then again, you also kind of block the hands that call a little bit.
But like on that river, it's kind of hard for Doug to have that many hands that want to bluff river. And with the SPR the way it is, like you don't really need to check raise to get money in against his good hands. So
Well, I mean, like you said, you suggested shoving as a size, so clearly you don't
exactly.
have to check jam to get it in.
So he could have just done it himself. It's just it seems really weird because you would rather make that. I don't know if the river or if the queen was at the club, but you'd much rather check like the queen. Okay, so yeah, you'd much rather check if you have like the queen of clubs or something there.
Yeah, for sure.
But
yeah, one thing to add to that whole GTO thing you were talking about a second ago, like great points, like that's basically what a poker player who's aspiring to like reach high level, maybe make a living or part-time living, that's what they really need to know. But I think a better way to phrase don't tap the fishbowl's question is, because sort of more what he means is, how long did it take you to have a good, not great concept of GTO principles? Because like you said, like GTO is so like amorphous and it's hard to really pin it down for exactly what a GTO strategy is in spots, and it's easy to find another strategy that only loses a small amount of EV or no EV. So it's more about learning, like you said, hand strength, equities, even things like just sort of the fundamentals of the game, like at its most basic level, essentially, but in an advanced way. Not put the best way, but I think you guys get what I'm saying.
I missed, that was like, those spots, like those small pots are cool too. I think Doug checked twice with kings and then, or maybe bet flop, check turn. I've actually missed that one.
Yeah, so it checked down to river.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and then Doug went for the river bet with the kings.
It's cool, like, obviously he's like protecting himself there by checking that hand twice. Which is kind of interesting against D-Negs, because I wouldn't think D-Negs is using too many like river overbets or anything like that. So obviously Doug's just playing the strategy he thinks is best, but you could like shift that into more of your value betting range if you don't think Doug's going to put you in that many uncomfortable spots. Or sorry, if Daniel's not going to put you in that many uncomfortable spots on river.
Yeah, good insight there. 3-bet from Doug just got through a moment ago on the right, and we got a couple single raise pots with Doug on the button.
Yeah, these are both. Yeah, as you're talking about too, like understanding equity. It's like I do obviously a bit of coaching as well, so it's always fun like working with newer students when you get to kind of like give them an appreciation of equity. Like a less experienced poker player doesn't really understand how much equity like certain hands have in different spots, and playing heads up really gives you an appreciation. Like when Doug calls that big raise with 10-8, he's got just a gutter out of position, and he just like understands like, yeah, this has enough equity, and then like I can bluff later. Like less experienced players will just feel lost in those spots.
For sure, yeah. I mean, just on its face, it looks like a really, really easy folds or really bad call, whatever you want to call it. And that we see that a lot in this heads up challenge in terms of like the public sort of response as Doug overbets the turn here. It's just people seeing these unusual things that are sort of unique to heads up, and that's really the only place they would make sense. And then people are crucifying either Doug or Daniel, really being critical of their play. But at the end of the day, a lot of those people, speaking from a place of ignorance, just not really knowing how heads up works. Crazy game. Hope you guys are enjoying watching it. I sure am.
It's a crazy game, and heads up is the craziest form of it too, right? So
3-bet from Daniel here.
Speed. Doug could obviously use some pretty big sizes here, because I think this one block check, right?
Daniel's flop bet being a block.
Yeah.
Yeah, minimum 400 into 2K. Yeah, he does go big, like you said.
Plot makes sense.
Definitely. He's going to have more queens and threes than Daniel.
I should have shown. I was going to say, like, he's going to want to have, like, the low cards here. Obviously, like, 4-5 is, like, a good bluff in that line if he has it. But, like, you saw he floated flop. There's another spot, right? Like, floating flop there with 4-7 is not something most people are.
So funny. I love to see that one. There was one big pot. As we see a 3-bet pot on the right here, Doug as the 3-better checks the middling connected flop. We had one where Doug had 7-8, I want to say, and it was like ace, queen, 5 rainbow, and he just peeled 7-8, something along those lines. Like it may be slightly different. And then he just like ran out the nuts, like turn 6, river 9, and he won a stack. It was pretty fun.
Those are the spots too when you're playing someone, you're like in Daniel's shoes, like, well, he can never have 7-8 here, so I don't even have to worry about that, right? And it's just like he has the 7-8 offsuit, and you're just like blown away.
It's funny because in one of Daniel's, in the video Daniel made where he reviews that hand, where he's like going through all the hands and basically it's like a bad beat compilation in a way. He said like, well, there's no way he has 7-8, right? Like saying on the river, oh, he has 7-8.
And like if you do see 7-8, you think he like randomly flat 7-8 suited pre or something, not the old just like 7-8 off, like complete
Right.
airball.
For sure.
Those are the hands where I always like joke about when you see those in like the pool, right away you're like, either I'm playing against someone who just started playing poker or he's amazing. And like you'll never know until you play enough hands against him. Obviously Doug falls into the second one.
For sure. So on the turn here, Doug put in a delay c-bet in a 3-bet pot, 5K into about 8, 2 flush draws. River completes the front door flush draw, and he checks. Daniel bets, and Doug folds. Nice pot over to Daniel there.
That's kind of an interesting size too, though. Like, I mean, I guess I'll have some king X chef flop, and that size makes sense. Just like very obviously like polarish situation.
For sure. Deucely on YouTube says, "Is there merch for this match? If not, get on it." That's actually a great idea, man. We don't really make any money from the merch on Upswing. Like it rounds down to 0 compared to our other business, but we love to add shirts and stuff for you guys so you guys can have them, and you know it's fun to see people wearing them out in the world. Just sorry guys, you're gonna lose the tables for a sec because WSOP crashed. I'll just call the action. Stop what I was talking about for a sec. Daniel's potting the river on that table on the left that you saw a moment ago. Bear with us, guys. Daniel took it down for a $4,800 pot. No other big pots happening at the moment. It'll be right back. Sometimes WSOP.com crashes, guys. It's a poker website. It happens.
Yeah, just like every other site. So you'll expect pretty big bets here from Doug, obviously, if he bets on this river. He could still have some blocks. So like again, probably a spot where he'll have some. If he really wants to go thin with like a 10, he could block and then some big bets. So when he checks, it's kind of interesting. Like he's gonna have some obviously 10x and stuff here, and some check raises. So very interesting size from Daniel to take half pot here. It's like 40% again.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys, for the that weird hiccup. WSOP.com did crash. What are you gonna do? Check raise from Doug on the right. Ooh, he's got a backdoor flush. Nice one for Doug there. Yeah, you guys didn't really get. Sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say that's why like there's like obviously downsides to reopening the betting. So I'd be obviously just interested to know if you want to reopen the betting there, you want to make sure you're getting enough value for what you're accomplishing. So it just seems weird to 40% that spot, give Doug that spot, unless it's like you just have a clear value bet, I guess. But
yeah, for sure. That's something that's like a key thing. That's why you see the small bets in position happen a lot less than out of position, because out of position, I mean, small bet is very similar to checking, right? I mean, check is basically a bet of 0. But then when you're in position, it's not just a bet of 0 because now your opponent can raise, whereas they wouldn't if you had checked. But out of position makes no difference. So you often see the smaller sizes used out of position more often in general, particularly on the river when there's no more action in the hand. Yeah. Matt Jonda wrote a great article about that on Upswing if you guys want to read it. Matt Jonda, brilliant game theorist in poker. Just Google small bet sizes, Matt Jonda, you'll find it. Good article. Check raise from Daniel on the right. So yeah, when the screen went black, guys, you did not really miss anything. Daniel had a river probe get through on the left table for a $4,800 pot, and then you came back in time on the right to see Doug win with that flush. So didn't miss too much. Thanks for bearing with us. Sorry about that.
So obviously, like, it's kind of interesting to use that flush as a check raise on the river from Daniel, because you'd think like you wouldn't want to use the 9 as much because of you want D-Nex to have some random like 9x that have missed the straight draw on the river. So it's kind of interesting to use that one as a check raise over a bet on that river.
Yeah, he didn't have any pairs, right? So that's definitely going to go into his calculus, not having any pairs.
But you're relying on Daniel like somewhat value betting thinly then, obviously. So obviously expects Daniel to value bet thinly enough that checking is good there.
Right. Doug putting in a $4,000 bet here.
This one check raise, check, check.
I'm double checking, but I believe so. Yeah, Daniel check raising the flop. Turn check, check. Yeah. Does get called. Daniel with the bottom pair. Nice check raising Daniel on the flop. That's definitely a hand that, or type of hand that should be in your check raising range sometimes.
Like really good hand to use on the river too. Just unblocking all of that type of Doug's range.
Right, like the king nines, jack nines, etc. A lot of those.
The spots too, like that, where most people when they get checked to on the turn, they're just in Doug's shoes, just like, well, this hand seems like a good bet because like I have nothing, and I can if I get check raised, it's not a disaster. But obviously, Doug's gonna know like he has some showdown, doesn't really want to get check raised, so it's actually like a pretty good check there.
3-bet pot on the right.
Is DNX still mainly like quarter potting in these spots?
Honestly, he's really mixing up. He has this 40% that he uses a lot. He's used the 2K, and then he's used like 3/4. And then he has overbet in that spot before, I think once.
Okay. So his bigger bets are mainly in 3-bet pots opposed to like on the flop at least.
Say that again, sorry, I missed that.
Oh, sorry, I was just saying like he's mainly using the bigger bet C bets in 3-bet pots than opposed to single raise pots. Since it's
From what I've seen, yeah, the single. I mean, there's also just been so many more single raise pots, so that's part of it. Could be some sort of bias, but yeah, I'm pretty sure the 3-bet C bet has been over bets more often for Daniel.
This one definitely on the left makes sense to use some small betting if you're gonna bet. Another 3-bet on the left. Doug wins with 2 pair on the right. So here's a super interesting board. These like middling boards are typically the most like most interesting to play just because there's so much. Every turn brings in something, so you really have to play your ranges correctly or you're going to be in some weird spots. But you just bet and take it down.
Shakaro91 asks, are they doing 25K? It really looks that way, man. I don't see a world where Daniel doesn't press it here. He seems in all the public content he's made, he seems very confident, very that it's at least a close match. Basically his exact words. And then yeah, he's said in everything that he's going to play. So it'd be really bizarre for him to say that on a bunch of shows, interviews, his Twitter, etc., and then not play on. It also just doesn't seem like something Daniel would do. 3-bet on the left. Unless he was getting whacked for like 2 million or something, but I mean, that's clearly not going to happen, barring the sickest sun run in the history of Heads Up No Limit. Half pot C-bet from Doug on the left. And this high board. 10 of spades on the turn. We got 4 to a straight now.
This is like very interesting to know what size he's going to take here. I would like it doesn't make that much sense to go. Yeah, I would expect a lot of checks, just the way your range plays on this turn. Obviously, the double flush draw, it's a little easier to find like a ton of easy bluffs on the turn, so he would be more aggressive on this turn than like a rainbow board of this type, obviously. And small bet is interesting in position on this texture.
All right. Not so interesting anymore.
This is where you shove quick and hope the other guy's not paying attention. Obviously, that's not going to happen in this heads-up match, but if you're playing a reg table, just shove and hope the other guy's watching Netflix or something on the other monitor.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially in this match where it's rake-free, so you don't even have like the benefit of not getting the rake. Yeah, I mean, they do take the rake out right away for those who are noticing that they are taking it, but the players are getting 100% rake back. By the way, I had a question from, we have a lull here. Oh, a 3-bet from Daniel on the left, so I'll wait a second to answer this.
Also a bet check bet, I think, on the right by Doug.
Yeah.
Takes it in.
Yep. Nice one for Doug there. 10-10-8 flop on the 3-bet pot on the left.
You can actually use like some, we were looking at this hand the other day, and this type of texture, you can actually use some big sizes, which seems weird. I mean, that's more for 6 max and heads up. So I don't think Daniel would ever be the type to like bet 75 on this flop. I don't even know if it's that applicable heads up, but it would have been cool to just see him randomly bust out a big bet there. Now he has
why do you think people tend towards smaller bet sizes on that board?
Because like for one, they like people like to do what's accepted, right? So like especially like less experienced players, so they just know that they can get away with small betting here and that's allowed. And they don't really understand that like some of these textures that paired boards you usually just bet small, but some of these like middling textures actually you can get away with some big bets. Makes your strategy a bit more complicated, but it also obviously makes it more complicated for your opponent too. Checks down. This is another one of the spots where the river's a 5 straight. It's like, all right, who's got the better blockers? Who's gonna rep the 9x here? Obviously, like seems like a spot D-Neg should just check a lot on this river. Yeah.
D-Neg picks up a 5K pot on the right, out pipping Doug. Top pair versus second pair. Pretty standard one. Check down.
Doug's in a cool spot here where you can like pick a lot of different sizes too when D-Neg checks down. Goes with
Let's
the
go for pot. Quick call. Daniel with the trap straight. Doug bluffing with the queen jack makes a lot of sense as a bluff.
I like that from Daniel though. Like the flop
Yeah, well
checks,
played.
like not intuitive always. Like most people will just see the open under and bet flop. But it's nice to like have that type of hand because as we talked about, if you get to the river and you're always bluffing your 9x earlier, then how do you have a 9 on that river? So
right, yeah, that's some good range construction from Daniel there.
And then I like obviously like Doug's play school too to just like not go for it on the turn with a. I'm assuming he uses that hand as a bluff a decent amount on the turn once check 2 twice, but checking it back to have that type of hand in your range on the river is good too.
A moment ago, as we have a couple 3K pots here, C-bet check down. Tricky Mick asked Mike, have you ever met Daniel? Yes, I have met Daniel a couple times at least, but I'm going to talk about the first one in a sec after the server bet because it actually speaks to Daniel a little bit in a good way, but well, his skills. Straight for Daniel on the right, top pair turns straight, going to drag a $7,600 pot. Gets that river value.
Probably, I would expect some pretty big bets here from Doug because just like barreling on the jack and getting this brick of a run out, whatever your value betting can go pretty big on this run out. He could have like, obviously he can triple like a strong 8 as well. So he doesn't have to have huge sizes here, but he definitely has, I don't know what he gave up with obviously, but like it would have been a spot where you have, again, tons of sizes available to you.
Yeah, so my story of meeting Daniel, I played a large tournament at the World Series of Poker. It was the first tournament one year was a 25K mix max, and I just decided to sell like a huge piece and play it, and just for like kind of the experience, sold it at no markup. And in my first table, Daniel was there, and I sit down, and I'm not. You never try to give away information, especially when you play in a big WSOP tournament. Like I'm okay if these guys think like I'm not a pro, or I don't want them to know anything, obviously, right? About to play for a lot of money. And he starts like asking me questions. And something about him, I couldn't not answer the questions and not give him information. He just like he just took it out of me. Like the Dementors in Harry Potter, like sucking the souls out or whatever. It was like very similar to that. Like the questions are perfectly phrased, the charismatic way in which he said it. And he got information out of me. Professional poker player, got information that I had a bet against him because he had a bracelet bet going that year, and I had a piece of one against him. So much information I gave him. It's crazy. Luckily, I did get moved like immediately to Adam Bilzerian's table, which was fantastic news. And that was a good day. I had a good day one on that tournament. But yeah, it was impressive stuff from him.
It's crazy how obviously that's where he's made his career. Like he's good at poker too, but like a lot of what he's been good at is getting information from people. So it's pretty funny to like that's what he's going to try and do to you, but you just can't help it. He just asks the questions and
right.
The strongest part of his game probably.
Yeah, it was impressive stuff. Like I remember walking away from it like, what the fuck just happened? Like, how did he do that?
Check on the left. Curious to see. Yeah, like Doug's gonna check this board with some. It's like a pretty high frequency bet spot, so he's gonna have some like I guess some very strong hands and then some obviously some middling hands in this check back range.
Doug's going for the turn lead here, betting about a 5th pot.
This was small bet lead turn.
Not small bet. Daniel went for 3/4 on flop. 1400 into 1900. Interestingly, he was betting 15. Well, I guess it's different because he changed his open size slightly. Daniel was making it 1K like the whole challenge. Now he's making it 960. Small difference. Interesting to see. Daniel's going to win the check down pot on the left with a pair, and Doug goes for the follow through. It's going to chop.
That's another one where the less experienced player would probably not know to use pot as your value bet there. Like, it feels weird almost, right? You're trying to you have a boat, but you have the low boat, right? So you don't really usually use the big size. But they do end up chopping it anyways.
Some more people starting to funnel in. Welcome back to the challenge, everyone. If you missed it half as much as I did, you are very glad to be back watching these chips fly back and forth. This is going to be the third to last session of 2020. We've got today, then we're going to have Wednesday, the 23rd, then we're going to have the 28th.
Check. I would expect again, like probably big size here from Doug. Checks twice. In these type of spots, has Daniel been finding like the finished value bets on this run out on the right?
Honestly, I've been surprised by like how more trappy he's leaned. Like, it's stuff that like is pretty clear value bets in certain spots that like he's definitely checking, thinking, okay, I'm trapping. And then there are others that it's more up in the air whether or not he's sort of not realizing that a hand is strong enough to value bet, or just thinking something else. Like, it's hard to say because it would be like maybe a hand like a 10 here that could potentially go for value. That's like less clear cut than like a jack. Because if you see him check a jack here, you know he knows a jack is good enough to bet for value. But if you see him check a 10, it's less clear. 6, less clear, etc. So some of them are very obvious. In general, though, he seemed quite trappy.
It seems like he's sacrificing a bit of thin value to just protect his range overall.
Yeah, I think that's very likely. Oh yeah, and for those of you on Twitch who have just joined us, weren't here earlier, emotes are here, finally. If you are a sub to the channel, you can drop those dongers, get those cookie jars out when someone gets caught bluffing, wave the white flag when someone doesn't bluff. Throw out the donger when really anything happens. The zam when Doug wins. Those are generally the best options. There's also the fold. Throw that out when you think Doug's looking for one of those. Or if you're a Daniel fan, you think Daniel's looking for it, do whatever you want. And if you're not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button to this channel and you will get those sweet, sweet emotes.
Wow, they got the Christmas donger too. Real festive.
That's cool. How did he do that? That's good for you. Good for you, Krabby Clink. Thanks for the sub, Late Drake 890.
Would expect a lot of betting here from D-Negs on the left. Another 3-bet pot on the right too. Let's see if Daniel calls. Daniel goes with pot on the turn here. Makes sense. Like, definitely not much small betting being done on this turn. Expect a lot of folding from Doug. This is pretty interesting. Check back, flop. Daniel leads for block on the straight complete, and Doug with the ace-king advantage pops it up.
Does get called. King on the river.
It's pretty difficult for Daniel to have an ace here. So it's going to be like Doug can really leverage this spot. There's just not really any ace X in D-Negs' betting range on the turn. So Doug could kind of just shove here. I mean, I don't expect to shove necessarily, but he easily could because it's just
right.
You're challenging D-Negs to have anything outside of ace 9 in his range. He does just
go for the half pot though. Yeah, quick call. They're gonna chop it up. Yeah, with a 9, that makes a lot of sense.
Because he basically, I'm assuming in that spot he values trying to get some thin value more than just forcing him off the chop. But like that's the type of spot where when you have a 9, like if he blocked a pair in that spot and had a 9, so you kind of block some of the 2-pair region, it'd be kind of a fun spot to just shove because there's less of the 2-pair region to get heroed by. So you just shove and be like, well, you never have an ace here. I'm just going to take this whole pot instead.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. You're gonna win with a lot of bluffs, right?
Yeah.
Guardia78 asked, as Daniel puts in the delay c bet on this turn on the left, he asks, Doug is changing between 910 and 928 as his pre-flop raise sizing on the button. What does it mean? It means that they're deeper stacked. When he makes it bigger, it's because they're deeper. Daniel checking back that rivered pair. He's going to win over Doug's 8. It seems like a potential value bet from Daniel on the river there, right?
That was the spot you were kind of talking about where, especially in position, he's not trapping.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, that could be almost more of just like, Doug is very capable of check raising like large sizes and aggressively. Do you want to have to face that much pressure with a hand like 10-7? That could be going through his calculus in some way.
But like, if you're gonna thin value bet, like that's a pretty nice one to value bet with, right? Blocking the straight.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Even if you do bet fold,
which is
bet
why
pot on the left.
It's kind of weird that it's been a while, but that flush where he value bet and got check raised by Doug's 9 high flush, like similar kind of spot where I'm assuming he value bets somewhat thin-ish if he's calling that river versus that after betting that size. So just interesting to not value bet that spot and put yourself in a dumb spot in the other one. So this was 3-bet check block.
Yes. I've never heard someone use block for in-position bets, so you're throwing me for a small loop right now, just so you know.
It's a bad habit too.
A little panic inside. I'm having a little trouble, but I'll try to keep up. He blocked.
The worst, it's like an easy thing to just say whenever someone bets small, and it's like, as you talked about, you don't really like say block on the river in position, and I'll still say it there. And it's like a really bad habit. There's another one that I say that's also, I can't think of it right now, but there's another one like that where it's like, that's not the right phrasing, but it's like a bad, just like habit of speech.
It's obvious what you're talking about, though. Very obvious what you're talking about. So, it doesn't really matter. I just wanted to get a needle in there. Doug is going for the double barrel now on the left. 8,700 into 13K. Gets the call. 30 G's in the middle now. King of clubs on the river.
I would assume there's one size in this river with this SPR. I don't think D-Negs would have any leads here. So shove or check usually from D-Negs, or from Doug, sorry. Goes for the shove.
Daniel's got to call 28 million to win, or 28,000. Got millions on the mind. 28,000. Yeah. Well, Doug's close to breaking $1 million, so that was what was going through my mind. 29K to win about 60. Getting 2-1.
I've seen a bunch in the chat today of Ryan looks like X. Ryan looks like X. What's the most frequent one you've been getting from the Twitch chat? Mike looks like X.
I've gotten 3. The most flattering was Seth Meyers. The least flattering was Kenneth from 30 Rock, which is very bad. And then he's a funny guy though. And then the other one was someone from the In-Betweeners, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and someone else said that I remind them of the Pawn Stars art, like the guy on Pawn Stars who is the expert on art to tell if it's real or fake or whatever. I don't even watch the show. No, I know, very niche, right? They said I don't look like him. I just like talk and sound like him, sort of. I watched the video. I kind of agreed.
I was gonna say you went and looked them up afterwards to see if
Yeah,
you
of course. Yeah, he seemed like a bright guy, so I took it as a compliment.
yeah, you get some well, especially anytime you have like like they just go with like generic things. Like you have glasses, you have this haircut, you have a beard, whatever, you look like this, right? So it's
Right.
always funny
Okay,
to hear where
exactly.
people's minds go.
Exactly.
DNEG's deep in
A
the
lot of
tank.
action. A lot of action right now. We got a 3-bet pot on the right as well. Daniel 3-betting.
Wow.
Ooh, it's a
That is,
bluff with Doug's 4s, turning that small pair into a bluff there. Daniel looking him up a top pair.
it
Flop top pair, I should say.
shows you how effective that bluff is from Daniel though. Like obviously he ended up getting called, but it took all of his
You
time
mean
rank.
bluff is effective from Doug?
Sorry, yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Like another one of those spots where you see that from a less experienced player and you think like, what's this guy doing with 4s? And it's like actually a really nice play from Doug there, obviously, to just like, you kind of run out of bluffs on that river, and that's why Doug starts that bluff on the flop with 4s. Because
right.
what if he doesn't bet that hand on the flop? What's he bluffing on the king river? And 4s makes a good hand to do it with.
Yeah. Plus, they got 2 outs. Those small pairs got 2 outs to make a nice little strong disguise set.
And you get there's some like mergey stuff that happens on the turn too, where Doug will get value.
We got an all in from Daniel here, 38K into 35K on the right. So this is pretty simple pot, guys. Daniel 3-betting, C-betting the flop, double barreling the turn, shoving the river. He gets it through. Nice couple pots there for Daniel, winning a combined roughly 55K there. Yeah, good couple minutes for Daniel.
Seems like the time off has brought him a bit of momentum this session.
Yeah.
About.
Yeah. Seems that way. Yeah, get your cookie jars out, actually, because Doug did just get caught. But we have them, even though it didn't go, quote-unquote, our way. Drop the cookie jars in the chat. Doug got caught. He deserves them.
What you really want to see there is DNEGS randomly has the ace deuce and hero calls, and Doug's bluff with the 4s takes it down.
That's the value. Yeah, yeah. It's funny when you messaged me about doing commentary. I peeped your channel, and you had one video where you like bluff with 4s on the flop or something, or I don't remember exactly, but you use it as like a bluff on flop and turn, and then you end up hero calling river with them.
Yeah, that's why I was saying like it's actually kind of cool when Doug bets the turn there with 4s, because sometimes DNEGS is gonna fold some pairs better than 4s, and then get to the river with his ace king and ace 10 that you'll beat. So like I'm assuming Doug isn't always bluffing 4s on a lot of runouts there, but the king is like he has 4s, so he can bluff on the king and then can win in a check line for some of our
Yeah, I mean if the river like pairs the deuce or whatever, I think he's fairly likely to check because he's got all those missed straight draws and all that stuff that can bluff, but when the king comes, it's really like, I mean, if it's not this, what are you bluffing with? Some random middling flush draw, I guess, but not too many of those.
Yeah, exactly. Another 3-bet on the left. This was, I'm assuming, on the right. Bet, check, bet from DNEGS and takes it down. Ryan, who are you, a cash player? Yeah, as Mike's talked about, I mainly play 500 Zoom and 1K on like sites. So yeah, I do a bit of streaming myself too. So cash game. It's nice to see some cash game content on Twitch. It's a pretty heavy tournament market. So
yeah, people love to see someone running deep in a 55 rebuy or whatever.
Well, I mean, one of my favorite like Twitch like moments was watching like one of Doug's first scores and like had the wife in there, and even like the wife enjoyed watching things. So I was like they are exciting. You know, I'm not a tournament player, but they are exciting.
Yeah, they are really exciting. They're just miserable to play. Exactly. For at least like a large percentage of them.
Yeah, they're either amazing or terrible. There's no middle ground.
Right. And somehow it could even feel terrible when you get like second.
Exactly, yeah.
Small C-bet from Doug on the right. In a 3-bet pot, we get the king pairing on the turn in this 12.8K pot.
Could see him block here twice, which would be really cool. He does go for the check.
Yeah, I assume the hands he'd block with would be like queens, jacks, kind of what you'd expect. Maybe a 9. Yeah.
You can just like block in this spot. I'm allowed to use block in this context, right?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so he just blocks 3 streets in that spot and try and like just get the hero calls and value, especially if you don't think DNEGS is running enough bluffs for your check line. We just got hosted by Upswing member.
One and only. Not just member, coach. Upswing coach, all in Pav. Yeah, he's making content for us now. Thank you for the host, Pav. Welcome to the stream, everyone who is watching tournaments. We were just talking about how much you guys love tournaments here on Twitch. And unfortunately for you, we got a cash game. But there's 21,000 in the middle on the right. Hopefully that's exciting enough for you. Daniel Negreanu's putting in a pot-sized bet.
Seems like a good size here. And Definitely
This is
interesting.
three bet pot where Doug bet the flop and turn check for those who didn't see it.
The spot where I know Doug's gonna get to the turn with enough. Yeah, like I mean, his boat stuff hard to play boat, but on that spot.
Sorry, just to correct myself, turn went check call. So Daniel did bet the turn there.
But as we kind of talked about, where Doug's floating those like 7-8 offs, 4-7 suited, those type of things. I'm curious how low in his range Daniel's floating versus the small size on King 9-3 to get to that river with like all the random bluffs he can have in that line. But also, Pav also does dabble in a bit of cash on stream, so his viewers shouldn't be pure tournament viewers. He does a bit of every now and then he'll hop in the cash games and show his stuff. He actually started playing cash prior to tournament, so he has a background.
A lot of people did.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot more convenient. It's hard to kind of sink your teeth in poker in tournaments because if you're playing it on the side, it's like do you really have like 6 hours or whatever you need to play the $2 tournament that you're going to play when you're first getting started? It's a little tough.
Yeah, it's a single person. Like it's so much easier when you're just on your own. When I was like on my own, it's easy to just play a tournament. Who cares? But as soon as you're in a relationship or have other commitments, it's a tough life to balance.
Yeah, very, very tough. It's hard to just like block out 7 hours, but potentially 2 hours or whatever for a tournament.
Exactly, yeah.
3-bet pot on the left. Now we see Doug using that 40% size that Daniel really seems to like.
We obviously got the Twitch chat saying that Doug's call on the boat river is clearly bad. I'm sure there's a lot of experience playing 200, 400 heads up in the chat, so always.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things like we were saying earlier. Heads up, a lot of things. I mean, you didn't even see Doug's hand, so I don't know how you could possibly say that. But it's so funny to imagine. Like he could have had the lower boat, and they're saying it's bad. It's so funny.
Or just has aces, and it's like, well, I can't fold aces in this spot because I literally unblock every bluff in the deck. So
yeah, it's just to finish that thought. Yeah, I mean, heads up, you see weird stuff that you just would be potentially bad or really marginal in like a 6-max game or live or whatever most people play. You see something heads up, it's like, wow, that is wacky. Could be horrible. Yeah. But you kind of gotta check yourself. I'm pretty careful to even say plays are bad from either player really. I'm generally more confident that Doug's plays have backing, but even then I know Daniel's gonna have backing for a lot of his plays, and I know Doug also immediately knows he fucked up hands sometimes. It's not like he never makes mistakes.
That's how you get to be good, right? When you know you fucked up and you can take onus for it, right? Not just like that was probably good. Who cares? Moving on.
Definitely. It's like Doug said in one of our post-match interviews, which there's one of those today too, by the way, guys, when play ends. He kind of said, he talked it out like, you play X amount of hands in a session per times however many hours, and he arrived at around 2,000 decisions per session you make. Each hand you make a pre-flop decision, sometimes a flop decision, sometimes a turn decision, sometimes two pre-flop, etc. Daniel bluff catching on the right with the 5. But yeah, anyway, Doug said that, you make like 2,000 decisions in one of these sessions, and it's crazy to think that you don't make numerous mistakes when you make that many decisions. Like, it's so many decisions, such a short amount of time, such a complex game. You're going to make mistakes. Both players are going to make mistakes.
I think Doug's posted like one Twitter response afterwards where he's like, we had it today. Like, as in like every spot he was like bang on. And then every other session he's like, yep, a lot of spots today we were unsure of, and we fucked them up. It's like, yeah, that's part of getting better at poker, being able to see those spots and be like, oh yeah, I should have done a lot of things. Another 4-bet. It's been a while since we've seen a 4-bet though.
Yeah, saw a couple out of the gate, but
yeah,
it's been a while. Doug is going to take that one down.
We don't get to see any deep spots right now because D-Negs has been carrying the momentum for the start of this session.
Nice session for Daniel so far, up about 100 G. 2.5 buy-ins, really digging into Doug's. About 20.5 buy-in going into this match. Progress bar, definitely making some solid progress for Daniel today.
See a check call on the left, and would expect mainly obviously big betting on the left from D-Negs on this turn. I got the
So
wife in the chat giving me a plug.
that's funny. I was just gonna say, I assume her name is Rachel then.
Yes, it is.
Shout out to Rachel. Thanks for tuning in. Not that you were gonna miss this one, obviously.
She's had some experience on Twitch herself. I used to do a segment on my stream where she would come on and I would coach her on stream, and like she has like always had a passive interest in poker even prior to dating me actually, but it was fun to just like try and teach her on stream and just like
That's cool.
And it was cash, right? So more for the good side of the non-tournament Twitch content.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so RIP Leroy. What kicked that off for those of you who kind of feel like that came out of nowhere? RIP Leroy asked, what is Ryan's Twitch channel? Because Ryan is a cash game streamer. If you want to check his stuff out, Poker with Risk on Twitch. Go give him a follow so you can check out his stream. Maybe check out some videos. He has a sweet hero call in one of them. And, he's also on all the other social media platforms. Whatever you use, look up Poker with Risk. You'll find him. Unless it's Facebook. I'm sure you don't use that.
Well, you could look me up, but there's probably no content.
It's like a personal Facebook though, right?
I have a fan page that I made, but like probably hasn't been touched in 3 years or so.
Right. Organic growth is not possible on Facebook pages, so I understand why you've neglected that one.
There's so much other stuff to worry about, as you must know now, doing all this for the stream, right? You can only be in so many places.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was like kind of Doug's media guy for a while, so when he was like streaming, I was kind of handling all that stuff too, and I do it for Upswing, so I'm very familiar with the social media grind. It's pretty withering. What are you gonna do though?
Yeah.
Part of life these days.
But now you're seeing all the benefits of that, like right now with like the audience that you guys have been getting for this.
Yeah, for sure. It's been nice to be able to pull in a nice group. A lot of lovely people to chat with while we watch these cards.
Mainly lovely people.
Yeah, I mean, as a whole, lovely. even you over on YouTube.
Oh, we do see a check raise on the left. Pretty interesting.
On the right now?
Sorry, yeah, on the right.
It does get through.
Another 3-bet pot on the right. Definitely, this is a board Doug can use some like pretty big sizes on if he chooses to. So he goes, and yeah, when you say that, that means there's going to be a decent amount of checking involved if you're going to have some big sizes. And then, yeah, you would expect Doug's supposed to use big sizes. Daniel's supposed to mainly use small sizes versus the check. So would expect a decent amount of check raising here too from Doug.
Right.
Call.
And the small bet makes sense because Daniel's going to be betting like a lot of hands that benefit from like kind of protection, right? And it's like a 6x, pocket 5, something like that, perhaps.
Yeah, and like the benefit of that too is being in position. It's not like Daniel's going to lose much value with the top end of his range by using the small size. So it's just preferable to just use one small size in the spot.
And that's because he can control the size of the pot on future streets being in position, right?
As we see now, he's amping up the aggression on this turn, putting a lot of money in the middle, and
can easily get it all in here if he wants.
Interesting that Doug just like snap checks river on the queen. I'm assuming he's just not having a leading range in this line, but there are some cards. He just it didn't seem like he cared what the card was. It was like a pretty much just in rhythm snap check. And he does just have the hero call down. Nice.
Yeah, pair on the flop, pair and a gutter on the turn. He does decide to peel one more than likely. Pretty doubtful he's hero calling that wide on the river. Who knows though? And he's lucky enough that Daniel had to give up or something weird with showdown value.
Maybe he tried to mimic the pocket for his bluff and just got the bad river.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was like, "Ooh, I'll do this with 5s now. This seems sweet." It is sweet though, bluffing with those small pairs.
Yeah, when those are always fun when you add those like little random elements that you didn't really know existed to your game, like just the bluffing with, it used to be in poker, like if you've been around the industry for a while, it's like we bet 2/3 on the flop, or half
Right.
pot, never less, and
I'm gonna cut you off for 1 sec because we have a 4-bet on the right from Doug, and Daniel got paid on the left with that 4-card straight.
Would expect again small betting here, mainly from Doug on the right. Be very confused to use anything bigger than small here.
You expect like what, 6K at the most, 5K?
Yeah, something that just really puts, you're gonna have a lot of ace-x in your 4-bet bluffing range, and then you just have value. So this board's just very good for Doug, and you just kind of put D-negs in a really uncomfortable spot by doing this, basically.
Yep, there it is. About a 5th pot. On the left, we have a 3-bet pot. We got the 6-6-2.
And Daniel's actually supposed to do a decent amount of check raising versus that size on the right. He does check call. Turn is definitely interesting. He actually shouldn't really have much leading here because I think a lot of your flushes are supposed to just check raise flop. So he does, check. You definitely do check call some flush draws on the flop, but like versus a really small size, if Doug is actually betting range, you want to like be pretty aggressive on this texture because you also have a lot of ace-x yourself.
Quiet 31K pot on the right.
Two big
Actually, yeah.
D-negs takes it down. I think that one 3-bet, bet.
Yep. And on the right, we just got the 4-bet, bet flop, check turn.
Definitely could be the jam spot from D-negs. A block all, like, again, probably mainly expecting some small bets and big, like, and all-ins. Don't really think there's too much point in having like a 20K-ish bet here. But he does go with the 20K, so.
See what Doug decides to do. Have to imagine he's probably in a bit of a hairy spot here. Not too many traps are going to check back the turn. Not too many hands are going to hit that deuce.
Especially because he's not going to 4-bet too much with a hand like king, queen of clubs, which makes like a really nice check on the turn if you are going to check some flushes. So, but
he does just all in. He's got the nutter butters. That's 112K pot going Doug's way. Quite a cooler. The two did hit someone's range. It was Daniel's.
So just to a 4-bet there with 5-3.
Yeah. So just to recap that hand for those of you who might have missed the action, Doug raised the button. Daniel 3-bet. Doug 4-bet. We had Doug with the king. What was it? King 3 suited. King 3 of clubs. Daniel calls with the 5-3 of spades. Seems like somewhat loose call, but it's not quite as loose as if your intuition is thinking that that's like an insanely loose call. If heads up, you're going to call quite a bit first 4-bets like that. Maybe that one's too loose, but it might be closer than you'd expect is all I'm getting at. Then the flop was ace 8-4, 2 clubs, 1 spade. So Daniel's got a gutter. Daniel check calls. Doug's got the nut flush draw. Turn 5 of clubs, giving Daniel a pair, and Doug the nut flush. Goes check, check. So Doug checks back as a trap. The river's a 2. Brutal card for Daniel, giving him a straight. He bets. Doug puts him in for about a 2x raise minimum. And Daniel is obviously forced to call off with a hand as strong as he had.
Do you think we're going to hear about that? If you watch Daniel's post-match interview, you think he's going to talk about that one, about the unfortunate river straight for himself and the flush for Doug?
I think he'll ignore it. I don't think Daniel's the type of guy to dwell on bad beats like that.
Definitely not.
3-bet pot on the left, 8,400 in the middle.
Check, check, flop, and now pretty dynamic turn. And we see a bet and get raised on the right.
All in from Daniel now.
From D-negs. Wow, this is a single raise pot each time. Like,
I mean, the pot was 12 blinds or 13 blinds going into the river, and all of a sudden we have an all in for 40K. That's pretty sick. Yeah, Doug going for the over 2x pot bet there, and Daniel sticking it in his face. On the left, looks like we got another bit of a cooler. Doug with the flush, Daniel with top pair. Did miss how that one played out, so I'm gonna just run it back for you guys. Look it up and run it back for you guys. So All right, so it was a 3-bet pot. Daniel 3-bet the king 9 offsuit, right? King 9 off. Doug flatted 8-6 of spades. Flop came king 10-3, 2 spades. So that Doug's got a flush draw in position. Daniel's got top pair. Goes check, check on the flop. Turn, Daniel bets 40% on the jack of spades. He has a top pair and a gutter. Doug has the flush. And then on the river, Daniel check calls a decent sized bet from Doug into the 15K pot. River did pair the board. Oh, actually, sorry. Oh.
It didn't pair the board.
It did pair the board, but Daniel bet and then Doug snap called. He called so fast. I'm just running back the video. He called so fast, I suspect it may have not even realized that it might have been a misclick is what I'm getting at, potentially. Because he called it was almost instantaneous. It's it almost feels like it's hard to misclick call in a big pot though, so it's a little weird. Maybe he just had thought about it and it's I'm calling.
And also they were kind of deep there on that table too, right? So
a little bit, yeah.
Wants to reopen the betting necessarily with that weak of a flush in that spot always?
Not so deep actually. No, I think there were only 100 blinds.
Oh,
so
really?
he would have, yeah, it was a 10K river bet. He would have jammed for 30, assuming he does it. It is a 3 high card board with a pair on it, maybe. And Daniel's gonna have some higher flushes. Maybe if he thinks he's not hero calling enough, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, here on the right we have a block bet from Doug, 6K into 18K on the river.
And we see a big raise from Daniel. Kind of an interesting size to not just shove it in at this point when you have 12K behind. Also, very interesting to know where Daniel's drawing his bluffs from in this spot for this. He's basically repping a 3 in this spot when you go this big. We know Doug loves a good hero call here too, so.
He does love the hero call. As much as chat hates to see it, he loves to do it.
Because Daniel never has bluffs, right? That's what they like to say.
Yeah, and they don't really like calling. You know how people are. They like to fold to river aggression because no one ever bluffs, No one, ever.
Good luck playing heads up.
There used to be, when Doug used to stream, he would literally say sorry before hero calling. He'd sorry guys, and then he hero calls. He just can't help it. There was one really sick one when he was at the final table of straight for Daniel. Really strong hand on the turn with the pair, gutter, and flush draw. He hits the gutter, gets paid. It's an 80K pot going his way. Nice one for Daniel. That's going to put him up about 2 binds this session. Yeah, there was one in particular where it was a 10K scoop event that Doug chopped, which is unreal because he's played 9 tournaments. And he chopped that one. And with 4 or 5 left, he was up against a really good player, I think European. And European bet the river for 40% pot, 33% pot, and Doug had a pair and a gutter that he missed the gutter, and he was I can't fold to that size, sorry guys, and then he click call, and it was right, and it was a super key spot, and then in next hand he won a flip versus the same guy to stack him. It's pretty funny.
That's always the best when you are super rewarded for your good play, where you just get all those extra chips the next hand. Is this usually? Does D-Negs usually take a break every hour and a bit?
He does take a fair bit of breaks, yeah.
Has Doug ever been the first one to sit out for a break?
That I don't know. Definitely not for a session. I don't think he sat out for breaks either, but maybe once. Maybe it could be 1 to 20 right now or so. Or it's probably more than that on Daniel's side actually. But Doug does there has been a lot of times where Daniel sits out and then Doug also immediately sits out, so he goes to do whatever. So it's kind of By the way, might as well deal with this now. Are you able to turn your mic up? Or Jimmy, if you think it's better, are you able to turn your mic up a little bit? Because I think I'm a bit louder.
Let me see.
Some people are saying. Oh, okay, never mind. I got it. Jimmy's got it. Thank you, Jimmy. Min race for the win. Old man leaking. Good one. That is a good meme right there.
They're back already. So real quick break. What's it at right now? How much is D-Negs up?
About 75K this session, approximately. A couple bins.
Chad, are you guys confident in Doug bringing this one back? What's the biggest hole Doug's come back from one of these sessions?
I'm not sure. I want to say like in the 150K range, but not sure. That's something I haven't really thought too much about, like the comeback sizes. I haven't thought too much about it.
Especially when you've been doing so many sessions, it kind of all just like blends together at some point, right?
Yeah, for sure. There's some blending together, and then the only like rigid memories I have are like session ends and stuff like that, or you know, some strategy stuff basically.
Yeah.
Most of it's just like, I mean, my brain is just like a jumble of cards and black chips. WSOP.com black chips.
Has watching this, like, you don't play much anymore, right?
Yeah, just occasionally for fun.
Has watching this made you like get back in the heads up streets at all?
Not heads up because it's such a racket to get action, but yeah, I played a little bit of like 6 max and stuff like that on the few rooms that I have access to.
Nice. When you told me I was going to be on today, I was initially going to hop in, play a bit of heads up to like get myself in that mindset, and then ended up, as I told you, slicing the finger. So
Right.
that wasn't really an option.
Yeah, it's a shame. Is it your click finger?
No, it's the wedding ring finger actually. So
okay. Well, so it's your love, not your livelihood.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So we have a 3-bet pot on the left, and Daniel's putting in he put in a $1,300 bet into 8,200 or so on the flop. So very, very small. Turn, he checks, completes the flush draw.
Makes sense. Gonna check a lot here. And Doug is putting a big bet in. This is usually an indication of a hand that wants to be going all in on the river. Like, at least that's what he's saying.
Yep. Definitely sets up a decent river shove, 42K into 27K.
Might not always shove. He's still obviously going to use big bets, but he might not always shove this when the river pairs.
Yeah, for sure. That does change things quite a bit, because otherwise in position has quite an advantage in terms of flushes, right? But then when the board pairs, it's a little bit more even at the top of the ranges, perhaps.
Yep. And now Doug obviously has less sets and stuff, which were part of his range.
Bet and call. Daniel's got the flop straight. Interesting. Doug going for the thin value with ace jack.
Super interesting that he takes like the kind of big size twice with that hand.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, Daniel did bet so small on the flop that like ranges are just going to be so damn wide going into the turn. It's like almost like the flop went check check. So,
right,
you know, I guess that's kind of a driving factor there. Interesting nonetheless. Doug with the overbet c bet on the right here and 3-bet pot. Ace king at 7. He goes 9K into 7,500. Does get through.
It's also a spot where Doug probably doesn't expect Daniel to trap much in that line when he has the ace of hearts in his hand. Sorry, like he would assume probably if D-Negs is trapping turn, it's gonna be a lot of like ace high flush draws, or ace high flushes. Sorry. So outside of 5-4 and pocket aces, which you block, you're not really expecting to see a ton of traps in that line.
Yeah, interesting line from D-Negs. Probably the pot's going to be approximately the same size regardless of how that one plays out, I think, because either Daniel's going to do the betting or Doug's going to do the betting on the turn and river, but interesting to see how it goes in. I think it's about time for a chat question. We haven't asked chat like a good question today, except for like right off the bat, and there weren't that many people here. Let's think here. What do we want to ask them? All right, I got a good one. Back to basics on this one, guys. All right, chat. What is your favorite thing about poker? Anything. Your favorite thing about poker. Could be specific, could be not specific, could be general, Could have to do with the game on the felt. Could be more of an away from the table thing. However you want to interpret the question. Doug rivering a pair on the right. Takes it down.
Winning money. That's like a pretty generic answer. Who doesn't like winning money?
Turning a set. That's a good one. How fucking hard it is. Good one, pesos for days. Very good point.
Is a good one. That's a good feeling. Whenever you turn the nuts in any situation, there's like, I think that's probably the best. I guess rivering the basically just making the nuts. I guess in general.
Yeah, it's nice when it's turn a river though, because you got a little bit more like a little bit less to worry about.
I guess the best feeling is rivering the nuts when it's 1-1, right? And you know the guy's probably going to shove. Like especially those deceptive nuts. Like when I was listening to the post game interview with Doug the other day where he had Jack 9 and he was trying to river straight against D-Negs and talking about how if he just river the nuts there, like all the wheels come off and D-Negs just like goes into the abyss, right? So like those are pretty nice when they're nice and disguised. Yeah.
It's really fun to just like even have those hands on the turn. Like facing a big bet, you got a really disguised open ender.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's nice. Real nice. 4-bet from Doug on the left here.
I don't think D-Negs is 4-bet this session. I think it's all been Doug.
Yeah, I think four 4-bets for Doug, 0 for D-Negs. D-Negs might have had 1 actually. I feel like he made it like 11K once.
Okay.
I feel like I remember him have like 11K being in front of him, but Brendan Bongfelt on YouTube says straight rolled up aces over kings. Very good. Very good reference. Xmodify on YouTube says Mike Brady is one of those guys that loves rake. You're right. More rake is better, so why would I not love it? Small bet from Daniel on the left gets through. Small C bet. The fancy stash. I like poker because it's less nerdy than my other hobby. I'm gonna allow the other chat. Well, YouTube could do it too because they'd have to scroll. It'll be a pain in the butt. Guess what the other hobby was?
There are not many hobbies less nerdy than that one.
There are quite a few.
So there aren't that many hobbies more nerdy than that.
Oh, the one. Oh yeah. Oh. Okay. Shots fired. Shots fired.
I mean, I played a little bit in high school. And by a little bit, I mean about a month or two. So.
Someone guessed D&D. Okay, we got some correct guesses. Good job, guys. You guys are smart. It's Magic the Gathering. Smart group we got here. Savvy. Or it's just like the target demographic for both poker and Magic the Gathering is the only people watching right now. I think that's probably more the driving factor.
Similar markets.
Chad, how long do you think we're going to go today? How long do you think Daniel and Doug are going to want to play on? Only 3 more sessions of 2020. I mean, they got to play some hands.
And with the break, feels like prime spot to go a bit longer tonight.
Yeah, you would think so. I could see the 23rd making it a little bit of a shorter one going into the holiday. Like you want to just kind of get it out of the way, get it done. But
this is interesting. Small bet half pot on the flush complete on the right.
Yeah, that's seems like a rare line, right? That's all that. Yeah. I mean, I don't really see too many half pot size bets on the turn in general, really, assuming a bet went on a flop.
Mm-hmm. You see like some smaller bets, like especially like blind versus blind spots, and like 6 max where the flush completes and top pair is still like effectively the nuts aside from flushes, but not much half potting.
Daniel drags. Sorry to interrupt. Daniel drags a little one on the left with straight. Please continue. Sorry.
Oh no, now he just goes for the overbet. So it's just kind of, it's almost like the classic D-Negs like baiting him on the turn, and then he doesn't get raised, and so now he gets the river with potentially too strong of a range for this line, and now just goes with the big bet.
4-hour guesses, 3-hour guesses for how long we go today. 7,009 seconds. Good one. Pseudonym with the funniest conspiracy theory of the challenge I've heard yet. Do you know who is in D-Neg's corner at this point? I really like the idea that Ben Solsky, Sauce123, is training D-Negs to get his revenge for losing the sauce challenge to Doug. That's fantastic. Yeah, sure. I mean, maybe that's happening. I mean, I don't know. Probably not.
I feel like there'd be better ways for Sauce to get his revenge than that.
Yeah, definitely.
see a small bet and then pot size bet on the right.
Yeah, Doug going 32 into 3,200.
And a block on the left and a check. And a bet check. Flush complete. So a lot of obviously Doug's bluffs get here. And he snap checks and loses to the ace deuce.
Green Friend 87 asked a question that I really like. Mike, what's the most degen thing you've seen a poker player do live? I'm actually going to write that one down and ask Doug that as well, because he's been adjacent to some very degen players for many, many years. So I know he'll have a fun answer for that, and it's good to mix in some non-strategy questions. But my answer is I didn't technically see this, but like I heard about it and I was in the orbit. There was this one guy, I think it was an Aria reg. I think his name was Mike, it's like Mike Davino or something along those lines. He made a bet that he couldn't leave the a bathroom in, I believe, a Bellagio hotel. He couldn't leave the bathtub of a Bellagio hotel for 1 month. And it was for like an absurd amount of money, like 100K or something. Some rich guy was giving him like a sick free roll.
I do remember.
Or sick odds, maybe sick odds, something like that. But he stood to make a lot of money by staying in a Bellagio, river pair for Daniel, takes down on the left, a Bellagio bathtub for, a month or maybe 2 weeks, maybe a week. It was a long period of time, and he'd make money. And there's a lot of gross implications that I'm sure you guys can gather that I'm not going to like say specifically of living exclusively in a bathtub. He got his meals delivered and stuff like that. He also had a plastic bag. You can guess what that was for.
Is that the one where he ended up getting bought out like towards the end of the?
I feel like that's what happened. Yeah.
Takes some time, some type of person to do that.
Oh, it's the guy who's nice enough to share the tables for us, Daniel, just said that he also had no lights on, so there was no lights in the bathroom. So no lights in the bathtub. That is degen as fuck. Shout out to you if you're watching. I'm sorry I forget your name, but I think it was Mike. You're amazing. That's sick.
3 up on the left, and we see a check, and then again, as we talked, in these like small boards, a lot of checking from Doug, and then small betting from Daniel. But Doug will definitely check raise this board, especially at this stack depth. Like over pairs are still like pretty comfortable getting it in. Yeah, and we do see a check raise. And he goes for like, about the size of what the pot was prior to D-Danx's bet.
People are correcting me, by the way. It was just a bathroom, not a bathtub. Daniel is all in. Open ender versus Doug's top overpair.
And he holds.
Doug's going to win that one. Turning the flush draw, taking away some of D-Neg's precious outs. Yeah, so just to correct that bathroom story, it was a Bellagio bathroom. It wasn't the bathtub. For some reason, I could have sworn it was a bathtub. Like I would have bet a lot on that. So, fuck me, right?
It's just like such a crazy. Like there's some like serious like psychological damage you can do by just staying a month in like solidarity with no light, right? So like I don't know, 100K is a lot of money, but I don't know if it's anywhere near the price I would have to be laid.
Right. You would need to be very much into meditation or something to pull that off without going crazy, I feel like. Doug with a big 4-bet on the left, 12.6K over 4,200. They're deeper, so you would expect to see larger 4-bet sizes. As the in-position player, you want the pot to be bigger when you're deeper. Makes your positional advantage more significant. Or rather, you have a more significant positional advantage when you're deeper and the pot's bigger, so you're winning more of a bigger pot. Does get through.
Talking about momentum there, if like D-Negs jams there, Doug calls with a better hand and just wins this big stack there, I feel like the D-Negs tilt could start going off the rails. What do I think of Daniel's play so far? Like, I think he's made some. I wasn't a big fan of the one time where he checked a flush with a river king, and like the big pots are worth a lot. But he's made some like good hero calls in other spots, like laid the trap. Like he played the 9-7 very well against Doug in a 3-bet pot where he like kind of trapped us straight till the river. And I know D-Negs likes the trap, but like that one seemed really fitting to make sure you're trapping enough 9x in that line. So I'd say like, yeah, he's like playing decent so far, just up against a very tough opponent, obviously. It's easy to critique someone's play when you're playing one of the best heads-up players of all time, because everyone's going to be made to look a bit foolish.
Chat's going to be talking about that bathroom thing for a while, so that's good. We could just focus on the game. 3-bet from Doug on the right.
Just like throw them something to just fight over for a little bit and then back to
You
your
gotta make it good though, because they're smart guys and girls, so you can't just guys and gals rather. So you can't you can't just give them something weak. There's nothing to chew on. There needs to be bathroom 100K, no light. That's like just enough to whet their appetite.
You're becoming an expert at trolling the trolls and wheeling them.
Dude, it's like such an amazing opportunity to have thousands of people that you get their chat like immediate feedback like this. It's such a unique opportunity. Like how often do people get to do this? It's just so fun.
And we talked about
like how cool would it be? Like something that happens in these chats. By the way, 3-bet pot on the right, 10K in the middle. Doug is going for a double there now. He bet very small on the flop. Like
Okay.
so, like if I say something wrong, I get instantly corrected by like 30 people instantly. Like imagine if life was just like that. You say something wrong and you get like a notification on your phone like, hey, that was wrong. That would be amazing.
Yeah. And you got apologize on the spot. Oh, sorry, I meant to say this or whatever, right?
Right. Yeah. Correct yourself.
Other times it can be a bit obnoxious, but I think like overall, like surprisingly, the Twitch poker community, like we give them a hard time, but they're like a good group. Like they're always there to give their feedback. They're usually the troll is good-hearted and stuff like that. So,
right.
Yeah.
You got to give them a hard time. They're giving us a hard time. It's just a game back and forth.
So
16K river bet from Doug on the right. Yeah, so Doug's just triple barreling here, I believe.
And then he went 10% on the flop, right?
I think a little more, like 16%.
But yeah. And he wins with a set and a check down pot on the left. Went for the triple check raise, I guess. But yeah, it's funny you just mentioned that because I literally just got corrected by something I said. The chat was correcting my grammar, so I literally had that service just given to me by them. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. It's stuff you like would never know to look up. That's kind of the thing. Like you would never know to get corrected. Because you could just look it up, but you don't know to look it up.
Yeah. And as Doug usually does, he's 3-betting a bit smaller now because they're a bit deeper. So he 3-bets smaller out of position and 4-bets bigger because he's in position.
Yep. That's just to control the size of the pot, make it bigger when he's in position, smaller when he's out of position. Daniel's kind of starting to mirror him now too. He's using the smaller 3-bet size on the left with the 200 blind effective stacks. So seems like Daniel's starting to agree that might be the way to go.
A good illustration of why you want to 3-bet smaller is that pot where they got kings in versus fives. At like 100 big blinds or around there, you're pretty comfortable getting kings in on 6-4-3 or whatever exactly it was. As you get deeper, you don't really want to play huge pots out of position on these textures because it's harder to shovel the money in. So you're gonna have to play a multi-street game on very dynamic boards. So you usually want to just keep the pot a bit smaller out of position.
Great point for sure. So you're kind of talking more from Daniel's shoes there, right? Like he's not going to just be like check getting it in with fives when they're 200 blinds deep. Like he's going to be just calling the flop, maybe check raising small, doing something weird at a mix. But yeah, for sure. Good stuff.
Check flop on the right. Definitely like both boards are checked to the turn. The right, you're going to see some like pretty big betting from Doug. You can also block like another one of the spots where you use small or very big. Does check. Obviously going to check a lot here too. Would expect some like middling size here from D-Negs when he bets. Be kind of weird to check back and use a big size here. Yeah, this is like in between middling and big.
Right. Doug with the pickoff on the left, pair and a flush blocker. Daniel going for it with the 9-5. So that was actually a no equity triple barrel from Daniel, or did he just see that flop? Let me double check that. Oh, so check flop, and then Daniel just barreled the turn, or bet the turn, barreled the river with the 9-high, no equity. Seems like good bluff selection from him there.
I was gonna say on the right here, you're not really gonna use any small bets in this spot, so it makes a lot of sense now to if you're gonna bet this river, you're repping like Daniel's not really gonna have any bare ace X here, maybe ace 8 in this line, sometimes an ace 6, but for the most, the ace 6 is irrelevant anyways. So yeah, mainly big betting here because you're basically repping some sort of like trap on the flop or some sort of delayed c-bet with a flush draw.
See what Doug decides to do here. Could certainly have some raises. Definitely going to have some calls. It's kind of a description of any spot, but you know, I don't take anything for granted with our audience. Might as well explain it. Does get through.
We see a pot size. Doug's been doing this a decent amount too on the left. I mean, they've both kind of been using these on the paired boards that are very dynamic. Some like pot-ish bets on the turn. Now there's 9K in the middle of the river, and could expect some very big sizes here from Doug if he chooses to. Just going to have obviously all the nuts in his range that D-Negs won't. So a very big size would be appropriate. He could also obviously take a more middling size. He does go with the 1.5x-ish with the deuce 3 and gets snapped by trips. Seems like a pretty well played hand by both.
Yeah, nice hand for Daniel there. Picking up a 36K-er.
That's just where very difficult for the less experienced player to find the 1.5x pot bluff with the deuce 3 of diamonds in that spot. Does not feel comfortable.
No, it's not comfortable. I'm gonna bet Doug is not. I wouldn't say comfortable is the word I would use for him then. I mean, maybe actually maybe he is, but not the number one thing that comes to mind. Does his 4-bet gets through on the right?
You can't have less showdown than that hand, which is the good thing. So you know it's a good hand to bluff when you have 3 high on the river.
Right, for sure. I remember maybe it was like 2012 or so. Doug was telling me about some opponent analysis he was doing on Sauce, and he was like looking at a large batch of Sauce hands that after he played against him, like they played like an ungodly amount of hands against each other already, and he like sorted. You know how you could sort in Poker Tracker by like your hand, and so like aces will be up top, then kings, then you know queens, all the way down, and then you go all the way to down bottom. It's 3-2. Yeah. When he did that for Sauce, or sorted by lowest, so 3-2s up top, it was like all or like very large amount big pots where Sauce is like bluffing because he has. So like there was clearly like a period of time where Sauce was like very heavily playing that way with his like river bluffs or whatever. Yeah. So like just like it got to the point where like all the times he had like 3-2 suited, the pot was really big because he'd like have 3 high and except when he had like a pair, you know. But if he got to like the river with it, he's like bluffing, and obviously Doug only has the showdown, so he's only seeing the showdown 2-3. So yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, just like who cares about blockers? I literally never win this hand if I check, so let's just run it.
Right, exactly. And this was like this was like 2012, so like 2012, 2013. So like blockers when bluffing weren't even like that. I mean, it was certainly a concept, but it was more of a nation concept than it is now, where basically everyone knows what to do now, or that's like a thing now.
Back then, it was like you could bluff sometimes if you block the nut flush with the ace, and aside from that, it was kind of just like, I feel like bluffing here. Let's do it, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, if you feel it.
I kind of miss like that, like because I played a bit of poker in my university. Like that's how I got into poker, was when I was playing then, and it was just like a Wild West where it was like no one really had any structure to their game. It was kind of just like bet what you feel like at any point, like bet what your hand's worth, and it was just like everyone's just kind of a field player back then. And obviously the games are still fun now. It's just like a different style.
Yeah, very different game.
Gazzy is sick of us. Gazzy's unfortunately sick himself.
Sorry, guys. Gazzy was supposed to be here today. Ryan was helpful enough to step in. Super clutch from him. But yeah, Gazzy caught the Rona, guys. Hopefully he doesn't mind me sharing that, but I'm sure he would have talked about it on stream, so I doubt he does.
I don't think there's many things Gazzy keeps behind closed doors.
Good, got it, perfect. So then I feel pretty good about it.
Funny thing is, like, I've like somewhat recently been chatting with him. Like we both play in the pool, but like more recently we've both been streaming a bit and talking. And like when we really started chatting a bunch was classic Gazzy form. We were just in the chat and he knew I streamed a bit and he just chatted at me and said, next small blind versus big blind pot, you ready to do a 50 big blind? This is a 500 zoom. He's like, you ready to do a 50 big blind flip? I was just like, all right, sure. I guess he just knew. I was like, there's a lot of regs who aren't down for that type of stuff. And I was just like, yeah, whatever. Like, you know, these are fun to add every now and then. And I'm pretty sure he had a monster and I like rivered a straight with like a garbage hand. So We're checking down the river, right? It's 50 big blinds all in, and you check down to the river, and I just won with like a river straight or something.
Amazing. Was that on stream?
I don't know if he was streaming. He posted it on his Instagram, I think in like a story or something, but I don't know if he actually streamed it. Big pot on the left, 10K pot. Doug's blocking turn. I don't know if
he did. He check raised flop. So Daniel bet 1,500 into 2K. Doug made it 4K. It's like 2.5 check raise, a little more. Daniel calls.
I'm curious if Doug would use that size if they were more shallow. Like it seems like a good size to use this deep because it allows you to bet more. Like you don't want to play necessarily a huge pot in this spot with all of your range, whereas the lower you are, you could, your threshold of getting all the money in is a bit lower. So could be a product of the stack size that he's blocking more in this spot after check raising flop. Let me see a bet from Daniel.
Quick fold. Big check raise from Doug on the right now too. 16K over 2K on the river. Over bet. Daniel's going to have to call 14K to win 21K.
So yeah, like Doug's going to obviously have some very good hands, and the hands he's going to bluff hands typically. He called check. So usually when you bluff in this line, you had a hand that had some showdown in the check call line, or sorry, in the check line. So maybe a king high type hand, maybe a queen high type hand, but doesn't think it's good enough to check call. So it's like a good hand to use as a bluff.
Right. That's kind of a classic properties of a check raise bluff on the river, right?
Exactly. So, and then and when you do that, you're obviously going to want to use a really big size because you're turning a hand semblance of showdown into a bluff. So if you're bluffing with showdown, you're typically targeting a stronger range. You want to go quite big.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. Could you see that pair being in there, like a 3-4 or maybe like a 3-2?
Yeah.
It's hard to just say 3x, something that doesn't so we don't have to think about the other blocker.
Yeah. If basically you'd have to be in a spot where you think Doug or DNX doesn't bluff enough in that line. Value of 0, so you, is it worth bluffing in this spot because he's capped his range at some point, right?
Right.
I would think Doug wouldn't use that type of hand there. Probably more of his like king highs and queen highs. And then if you're getting more advanced, he'd probably want to use the ones that block the highest frequency checks from Doug on a DNX on the turn. So like king and then like a low card, so that when DNX checks an ace, it's gonna be the weaker ace on the turn.
Makes sense. A moment ago, we saw Daniel 3-bet, Doug call, and then Daniel check fold to the flop. So nice little one over to Doug there.
I see a bigger bet from Daniel than is standard on the left on the 10-6-5. And this board is kind of one that makes sense. It's like, kind of a middling. DNX overpairs are quite strong here and want to put in a lot of money now. We do see a check raise and kind of a smallish check raise than what you're used to, but again, could be a product of stack sizes.
This is the same check raise we saw a few hands ago when Daniel bet that river.
Yep.
2 hands ago.
You see a call and really good turn for Doug's check raising range. So could definitely see some very big bets on this turn. Could also block as we saw him use on the other one, but like wouldn't be crazy as he does go for the block. So this is a spot too where obviously like versus this size, DNX should have some kind of thin raises and then obviously some more nutty raises. And when you raise here, you're challenging your opponent to have the 3-bet both bluffs and intact blocked range here, where you're going to have value in this line. Obviously Doug will, but not all your opponents will.
Daniel's just got to call 3,300 to win 13.3K there, but it gets through. Very efficient bet for Doug.
Probably more likely that Daniel had some of those like 2 overcards in a backdoor type hand if he's folding that turn to that size.
I'm going to grab a beverage. I'll be right back.
So we see would expect some, I was going to say some big bets here on the left from Doug, and then another, he likes these half pot bets on the right. Some of these sections. So we saw, I think, a small bet on flop. Gets to this turn, he goes for half pot. And Doug calls, and probably just going to check this river. Doesn't really seem like a river he's going to leave. Checks it back and loses to King Jack. What'd you go with?
My girlfriend got me Belching Beaver hard cider.
Oh yeah, you're a cider man, right?
Or not hard cider, sorry, hard seltzer. Yeah,
Seltzer.
I wouldn't. Beer's my preference, but I can't do it hurts my stomach basically. So I do the other drinks, hard seltzers or hard kombuchas or occasionally ciders. They're a little too sweet for me.
Treat yourself to beer every now and then when you want to put up with it, but just like really need one.
Honestly, no. I reserve the like this quote unquote cheating for like pizza or something like really really worth it, where like it's gonna be painful, but like let's roll. Yeah, let's enjoy.
Can only go so long without pizza.
Right.
It feels like there hasn't been that many spots like this on the left where D-Neg's C-bets flop, check, turn, and then he hero calls river. Seems like when he's checked, obviously it's small, but when he checks turn, he doesn't really hear. He's done some raising on the river, I think, in those little bet flop, check, turn, call river.
Yeah. So basically, you're positing that potentially Daniel is c-betting flop, checking turn fairly weak, and then folding river a lot for that reason, sort of.
Yeah, like potentially c-betting flop too wide and then not putting enough air in his turn range so that he's just arriving at the river with too much air and just folding a ton.
Right. Yeah. That's a really tricky thing about heads up is you have to be quite good at identifying those like no equity bluff spots, because if you don't, this kind of thing happens. There's a ton of other unintended effects too, where spots where you're going to end up with too much air on the river and you're going to be doing way too much folding. You're also just giving up on, or you're rather missing out on a profitable bet. That's like at the end of the day, that's the most direct effect. So yeah, it's very tricky.
Much easier in poker when you just like have equity and you get to bet. The tough stuff, just the double barrel with the jack high, no equity turn type thing. So you have bet, check on the left, I think. And yeah, see another one of the spots where he's obviously you want some queens in your river check range, but on that run out, you obviously just value bet that. I think that went check, call, check.
On the left with the queen three? Yeah, it did.
So you definitely want to check raise, check call some. In that spot, I would think you more want to protect your check raising and your check call range with a hand that strong, especially once the board pairs and you effectively have queens and nines with a 10 kicker.
Right.
If you're going to check a queen, you're just going to pick blockers that Doug's going to bluff a lot with, yada yada.
Right. Yeah. 3-bet pot on the right, and we are waiting. Oh, it's not going to be a 3-bet pot. Doug's 4-betting, 10.8K.
Hopefully see a continue from D-Neg, see a nice big pot here because they're getting a bit deeper on.
Yeah, love to see the 4-bet pots. Ooh, it's gonna be it could be a 5-bet pot.
And at this depth, Doug's gonna have a lot of like 4-bet range, so you wouldn't. Oh, never mind. What do I know? He does find the fold. So, and on the right was this bet, and then they got here.
Daniel checked to Doug on the turn, check flop, and then Doug bet 4,800 into 7,200 on the turn. Okay. Now we're here on this river. So we see a 5-bet get through. That was the first 5-bet that has gotten through of the, 5-bet non-all-in, I should say, that has gotten through of the match. There's only been one other, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, where Daniel non-all-in 5-bet with ace-king, Doug flatted with jacks, and they ended up putting in like 2 bets post-flop, and Daniel river to king, so, yeah.
Was this a... Sorry, I missed on the right with the sevens. Did D-Neg's 3-bet?
He did. D-Neg's 3-bet, check flop. Then Doug bets the turn when check 2, and then bluffs the river. Daniel picks him off. Another nice pot for Daniel there. Daniel on a bit of a run.
So like that type of spot is obviously a nice, like, it's not really a trap. You have a pretty bad hand, but like that spot makes a lot of sense for D-Neg to do that. He's just doing that a bit, I think, too much with some 10x and stuff there as well.
Saw someone asking over on YouTube. There's no delay, guys. We are live. Might be like a few seconds just because, it's the internet and it has to like travel or however that works. But Yeah, it's basically live. As usual, guys, Doug will be joining us for a quick chat, or maybe not. Sometimes it's like up to 45 minutes after the session. Whenever play ends, he will, take a couple minutes to gather himself, and then he will join us to, talk about today's match, the match in general, whatever else is going on. So if you guys have any questions for him, let us know. Probably the best way, if you're, the most likely way to get your question seen, you could just type like question for Doug : in chat, and that'll kind of stand out for us. But more likely for us to see it if you tweet at us. I'm at mbradycf. Ryan is poker with risk, just the way his last name is spelled, risk. So yeah, shoot us a tweet there if you have a question for him. Please don't DM. I don't even see those. Get way too many DMs. Although now I just opened the floodgates. That was so stupid. Fuck.
Supposedly Timex predicted that hand that just occurred. He just said that real message from him to Doug last week. One of these hands you're going to 4-bet to. DNegs is going to click it with 55k effective. Assuming he had aces there.
Amazing. Nice prediction, Mike. I'm gonna. I feel good about your prediction. Pretty good. Although we did see him not all in 5-bet with Ace King once, and that was pretty surprising. Though that was like 200 blinds, so a little different.
55 is a little more shallow.
Yeah, definitely.
Mike actually went to school in like my hometown too, so.
Oh, nice.
Canadian.
Pot size double barrel from Daniel on the left here. After he used this bigger c-bet size on the flop, 3/4.
His range, yeah. Timex predicts Daniel's range in that spot is ace. It's
in brackets to denote a range.
Could see some obviously very big bets from Daniel on this run out. Just deuce X he has to be worried about here. He does go for pot.
Third pot bet from Daniel on the right. 3-bet pot.
I would think this board he's not supposed to do as much betting on the 9-4. Just because
it does get the value with the trips on the left. 43k pot over to Daniel. Yep. Doug did check call.
Check, and pretty good card for Doug, because a lot of Daniel's Queen X could potentially be bluffing this turn if he's finding the lower equity hands on turn. And then obviously Doug's going to check call with a bunch of ace queen, king queen, even hands like queen jack, queen 10 with the back door. So Doug should have a decent amount of showdown on this run out. And DNegs, let's go for the bet, check, bet. Kind of repping that he bluffed flop with like a queen and check turn, like kind of a middling side. You just would kind of expect him to mainly value bet turn with a lot of his 9x. And then I don't know if he's going to be able to find much thinner value bets than that in this spot.
He is somewhat trappy, though. I could see him checking 9s a little bit more, like more than you'd expect, perhaps. Like maybe. I mean, they have to do. Do they do any checking really? Like they're pretty high frequency bets there, right? A 9
on that turn, yeah, because like Doug's not really supposed to check call that much in that spot with a ton of pairs. Like once that bet goes in, Doug's supposed to do a lot of check raising. Obviously, he gets to check call some hands, but like if you have an overpair in that spot and DNegs opens the betting for that size, you want to check raise a lot. So therefore, on that turn low card, DNegs should effectively have the nuts with most 9x against the bulk of Doug's range. So yeah, like you don't want to do a ton of checking on that turn.
Yeah, makes sense. On the left table, we just missed a pot. Nothing crazy, but excuse me. Daniel check raises on king 8-5, 2 clubs, turn 4, so 6-7 completes, and Daniel check folds after check raising. So Doug drags about a 6k pot there.
On the right, it goes check, check, and then DNegs blocks turn. We see a call. Some of Daniel's bluffs will now get there on this river. These are the spots where if Daniel's not bluffing missed flush draws here, which a lot of people won't want to bluff flush draws here, very difficult for him to have a ton of bluffs on this river if out a proper turn block range. So this is kind of those turns me and Mike were talking about, where you need some just junk in your block range, so when you get to this river, you don't just have pairs to, to check with or bet. So to figure out what exactly you want in this spot, that's up to you guys to figure a strategy. But yeah, junk in the turn bet. So when you get to this river, you're not just, oh, I don't want to bluff flush draws, so I'm basically either check folding or check calling.
Doug went with the 2x pot river bet on the right there when checked to, and it got through 6K into 3K. By the way, guys, I'm seeing a lot of questions for Doug, but a lot of them were answered in his recent Reddit AMA, which we also did sort of a roundup on Upswing. So I'm dropping in the chat right now the link to that roundup on Upswing. It just sort of has a quick collection of the best questions from the AMA, and Doug's answers just directly quoted. I dropped it in chat, so check that out. If you're watching this in the future, not live, go ahead and Google search like Doug Polk's Ask Me Anything, and you'll find it. You could also check the live chat replay, and you'll see it. Daniel getting paid off with the nuts on the left.
Was that flop flush that he kind of slow played, or I missed the?
Let me check it. He did flop a flush, and the pot was only 3,200 in the river, so he slow played it to some extent. Let's see. Flop check though. Let's see if he bet the turn. Flop check. He's got the nut flush with a straight flush draw. Oh, he like blocked the turn for like 40%. I guess not quite a block, but quite small. And then the river. Did you see the river action?
He bet big on the river, right?
And just got called. Okay.
Check raise on the right. 3-bet check raise. Yeah, this spot is definitely interesting. Like Daniel doesn't get to just bet too often here versus the check. Yeah, he does get potentially punished depending on if he just had the low equity, doesn't care, or if he actually had to bet fold some sort of. That's a spot where if you're less experienced, you might bet too many hands that actually have more equity than you think and don't really want to face a check raise. Where you probably want to be more happy to continue versus a check raise or happy spot. Small bet check, I think on the left, and then backdoor flush completes. All the straight draws miss and the front door flush misses, so you could see some small bets here from Daniel, but most of his value betting range is like a jack plus, so probably at least a lot of 2/3 from his betting range, especially because he doesn't really, not sure how much like thin value betting he's going to be doing here. If he has like, and he does check call versus flush. Kind of interesting to like snap. So the chat's coming back at the old, is there such thing as a front door flush draw chat?
Is Primo here? Is that why it's happening? Or who brought it up?
Someone named Casson this
time. Oh, Casson. So yeah, gotcha. Cool. I love that discourse. That was fantastic.
You have a back door something. How can you not have a front door? Seems like it kind of
right. Of course. But Primo. Well, or maybe you don't. He's Primo. He's gonna be a stickler just to fuck with us.
Think bet flop check turn on the left. These are spots. These are the ones that be nice to see some showdowns where we know, like this spot, kind of predicting like what D-Negs is giving up within this spot where he isn't finding the bet check bets enough. Doug's obviously not folding his hand. Just interesting to see what Daniel's giving up within those spots. Because when we say give up, he could easily just have a pair that never bets in that spot.
Daniel is sitting out on the left table, likely to sit out on the right in a moment. We didn't see the 3 dots from him yet. If he drops ... in the chat twice, that means he's done. For those who don't know, there is no chat on WSOP.com. If you say anything in the chat, it just chat pot on the right. If you say anything in the chat, it just shows up as 3 dots. So they use a Morse code system here in this challenge. And 3 dots twice means GG. 1 dot means BRB. Though it seems like Daniel just leaves him hanging on that sometimes.
If if he doesn't sit out, I'll probably grab a beverage myself. So we'll see if Daniel playing more poker will lead to me drinking.
Yeah, that's basically been my last month. My relationship with alcohol for the past month is basically like when Daniel decides to continue playing poker past 4:30 p.m., I drink alcohol.
Yeah, your alcohol consumption goes up.
It's a pretty specific spot though, so I feel pretty good about it. I don't think I'll be in AA anytime soon.
And the worst is it can be like 3 days. I mean, I guess 3 days a week can get quite, depending how long these sessions go.
Yeah, it can get to be quite a lot, but it's fun. It's too fun for it to be like too taxing, you know? Like
Yeah.
it's just like afterwards I just like relax and, you know, kind of decompress for a bit and then feel fine.
If he hasn't chatted yet, he probably is gonna come back. So I guess worst case scenario, I'm drinking a beer off stream.
Yeah, that's not too bad of a scenario. D-Nex is back. All right, guys, what is your prediction for how this one ends? Right now, Doug is about minus 120K on the session. Who knows how much longer they're going to play for? It's impossible to say. Go ahead and guess. Drop your predictions. How will this session end? Tacheva with a quick positive for Doug guess at minus 10K. I'm sure Doug would be happy for that. Port Wine, strong guess, minus 600K. That is, you are betting on quite the run from Daniel there. Doug plus 50K, that is extremely optimistic, but possible. I guess not extremely optimistic, that's probably overstating it. 3-bet from Daniel on the Doug on the right. Mark Spanger with a very, very bold prediction. Doug makes a comeback and wins 120K. Would be a nice little 6 buy-in swing in Doug's direction. Tough to do, but possible, especially if they get deep. Sellerk says if Daniel keeps his composure, he ought to be fine. I'm not sure composure can stand up to, you know, bad cards versus better cards, but who knows? Maybe composure's enough. JB Fricky in the chat, all caps, we just got to keep our composure. Four bet from Doug on the left. Let's make it just under 11K, over 42. Just in time for a 4-bet, Ryan.
All right, nice. I'm assuming, yeah, I was going to say there's no min 5 bets going.
Oh, Daniel is all in. Quick fold from Doug. Papa Beak coming in with the logic. I'm going to be really boring. Estimate another 200 hands play at 17 big blinds per 100, being Doug's potential win rate. Let's say Doug minus 106. That is a logic and math backed guess. Let's see if it pans out. If that pans out, if you're within 10K after that, you could have a free Upswing merch. Any merch product from Upswing. Who? Papa Beak on Twitch. I just really respect them. Like, he did math, you know, he like opened his calculator app or whatever. So
more impressive math than Mike McDonald's range construction.
Yeah, definitely. Mike just typed like 4 keystrokes. It's not enough. not enough for free merch.
I think that guy might be at least decent.
Decent at what? Sorry.
I'm saying Mike McDonald might be at least decent at math.
Yeah, I think he's probably decent.
See, check flop block turn in a decent sized raise from from Doug. It's kind of interesting to have leads here of this size. Like, it's not really a spot where you get to thin value bet it, so kind of interesting to use a small size here. And this is actually a spot that Daniel could like definitely lead when he has that turn size and then like the front door flush completes, he could definitely have some like, wow, definitely. So pretty cool spot there from Doug to find the raise there with the kings. And then also, he doesn't necessarily have to use that hand, but if D-Negs wants some bet 3-bets, some of those type of hands are the ones you want to mix in there. The ones that like can be the best hand, cannot be, but have like good against both bluffing and value bet ranges. So if he wants to set up the block 3-bet, that would be the type of hand to sometimes use. But he decides to block call and then check river.
Yeah, that turn raise from Doug is cool. Cool to see that. I mean, it definitely makes sense versus the smaller size when you sort of think about it for a sec, but pretty counterintuitive to put in the value raise, especially before the river. For some reason, even before the river, it makes it feel even a little bit more rare that like you're putting in the raise with for value with not hand that doesn't even beat top pair. But yeah, versus the small size, it does make a lot of sense.
Could be a spot where he's kind of disrespecting Daniel's block size, right? Like, doesn't really think it's, maybe he's seen in similar textures where Daniel, so kind of just assumes his range is going to look more like it did there.
Pair for Doug on the left. He's going to win a small one.
There's someone's trying to start a chat about who's got the better paintings, me or you. I think you definitely went with the creativity. I just have movie posters behind me, so that's a little like not much creativity there. So
I actually painted these too. So.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're trolling. Are you one of the trolls? I can't tell.
I'm kidding.
I would be really impressed. Like my wife does a bit of painting, so maybe that's why I just took you at face value. How recently did they become festive lights there? Recently?
Yeah, like 6 days ago or something. Throw some festivity. This is like the most decorated our house is too. This is like the most decorated corner right here.
You got like you had a break and you just went to work. I just put up all those lights behind you.
All of them, everyone.
Check. Now this spot would make more sense for Daniel to use some because the flush does complete, so he can like have a wider value range. Can obviously also use some big bets. He does. When you say that, he just kind of uses like the more middling size, the 40% that he likes. And then river jack. Wouldn't expect too much small betting on this river. He does go for the like bigger bet. It's like a really good spot for Daniel to bluff a variety of, and also a good spot for Doug to combat that with some of his own.
He does put in the raise to 8,300. By the way, your mic is cutting out occasionally. Do you have any thoughts on why that might be happening?
Maybe I put my beer in front of it. Could have been as simple as that.
Yeah, perhaps. It was kind of happening before the beer, though, I think. But 2 pair for Doug gets paid off on the right. We'll just keep an ear out for it. It's not too bad. It's just like every once in a while, like the very last thing you say gets like cut off. Most of the time, it's like clear what we're going to say contextually, but sometimes it's not clear. I'll just be sure to, if that happens, I'll be sure to ask.
If it gets worse, let me know and I'll do what I can to troubleshoot it.
Cool. Yeah, it's not so bad that it's like going to ruin the stream or anything by any means. So don't sweat it too much.
Pot size bet versus the check on the flop from Doug. One of those boards that like is deceptively good for the big blind.
Doug winning with 2 pair on the left.
And I would expect mainly big bets and checks from Doug here once he pots the turn. Supposedly it's cutting out a lot now, so they say.
It didn't get any worse necessarily.
Okay.
But someone on YouTube did say confidently he has to change his voice activation bar under voice and video under user settings in Discord. They've confidently given us fixes for things before that haven't worked though. Just keep in mind. So this is not necessarily going to be a magic key, but thank you for that, regardless of whether or not it works, Jason. Appreciate you looking out for us. 3-bet from Doug on the right gets through.
All right, I'll make it so it picks up basically everything.
What could go wrong?
Hopefully nothing. That's all you can hope in this world, right? Just hope for the best. See, is this just a double barrel from Doug on the left?
Yeah, based on pot size, it has to be. And he's using his normal like third pot on the right. Does get check raise from Daniel. Not a board you're going to see too much check raising from the big blind. Certainly some, but King exports tend to be a little better for the button.
And since Doug is c-betting range, the like small check raise here is pretty good because Daniel has like, King X to back it up and then a ton of bluffs. So Doug just has like gross spots with a bunch of his range.
Doug puts in the river bet on the left with the rivered boat. He's going to drag a 16K pot.
Another 3-bet pot on the left now, but no action. What's the craziest heads-up session you've ever played? Say like in length or just like opponent you played was a complete nut. Does anything stand out in your career?
100% one stands out. Yeah, no actions. This is perfect time. So I was playing. I sat the lobbies on. It was on party. Heads up sit and goes. So this was like towards the beginning. I played heads up sit and goes first, then switched to cash, and then started working on upswing. So I was playing heads up sit and goes, and I was sitting the lobbies from like I want to say 200s to 1K. So that's 200, 300, 500, 1K. Sitting those lobbies. So 1K being my highest level, that's like the highest I'll play. I get nervous when there's a 1K kind of a thing. And I got sat by a pretty huge whale. He played, one game, played real bad, really punted off the first one. Second one, he rematches. Second one, I beat him pretty quickly again. Third one, beat him pretty quickly again. So I'm up, 3K at my highest stake level, pretty sick. Fourth one takes a little bit longer if I remember correctly, but I get him. And he's real bad. Like he's doing like some 10x pot shoving with like really bad hands. Like he's basically messing around, And he says in the chat after or like in the middle of the fourth one, you want to play 5K? And I was like, I guess so, So I ran to my roommate's door and like knocked on the door. He was in the shower and I said like, hey, I got 5K action versus like the worst player ever. You want to take? I don't remember how much, but some amount. And I'll continue that after we get this 10K pot over with on the left.
This is 3-bet and call?
I believe so. 1-bet went in. No, sorry. It is a single raise pot. Turn check raise. I think turn check raise. Double check.
And
yeah, turn check raise and check. Doug's going to win that one. Yeah, so we're the 5K starts up. Like first few hands, I maybe get a 3-bet through or win a couple blinds, so I have the lead. Then I like open aces. He 3-bets. I 4-bet. He calls. The flop is like 8-2-2, like 2 hearts or something like that, something along those lines. He like just lead jams the flop, and I call, and he has like 7s or something, and we hold, and then he rejects, and it's GG. So just like 9K. When I'm mainly my average bind's probably like 300, so I won like 9K in like an hour. It was crazy.
Well, like in magnitude, like what was that in terms of say your average winnings in a day, like 5 times or something like that?
That's a good question.
Like if you're winning
10, so that would be 2K would be if it was 5 times.
Yeah.
That 2K winning day would be a good day for sure. So yeah, like that, like it was super sick. And I mean, obviously I didn't have all of myself on those last ones, and I was back for all of this, but like my bankroll didn't have all of it on the 5K. But even so, like it was just super sick, super. I was shaking on that one. I think but it was fun.
It's a big spot to be in. You see a C-bet on the left, and then an overbet on turn, and then obviously a pretty good river for Daniel. Sorry, where whatever he value bets the turn is pretty comfortable on this river. So you can see a variety of sizes, anywhere from say 2/3. He does give up and loses to 2 pair. I say give up in that spot because most of his king X that overbet the turn are probably going to value bet that river. So unless you river to 10 in some random bluff, it's basically a give up. When people ask me about I haven't played many crazy heads up sessions, but the craziest session, unfortunately for me, the one that always comes to mind is last year, actually, the middle of leading up to my wedding. Perfect timing for this. I had a session of 500 playing I think only 500. I don't think I was even playing any 1K that day. And I lost 17K. So 35 buy-ins in one day at 500 now. It's just
wow.
Absurd. I didn't even know that was really possible. I know you could run bad in one day, but 35 buy-ins in a day is tough to do.
Yeah, even if you're tilting, it's kind of tough. And I'm sure. It's hard to not be tilting at least to some degree. But I'm assuming you felt at least decent if you were continuing to play.
Yeah, it was just
pretty unreal.
Second nuts every time type thing, right? Every time I made a flush, you had a bigger flush. Whatever happens, hopefully never again. Hopefully I don't have any other 35 buy-in days.
Yeah, hopefully that's your story for the rest of your career. That's your worst day story kind of a thing. Check raise on the left from Doug gets called.
The good thing is whenever you talk to students and they have a bad day, I lost 5 buy-ins today, and I can just tell them that one's listen, I've been there and worse, and we made it out the other side. You'll be okay. Don't worry about it.
For sure. There's always light if you're gonna work hard and keep playing well. Easier said than done sometimes, though. Doug following through on the left here. The small bet, he does get called. 6,500 in the middle over there. And on the right, Daniel C-bet the flop turn, check, check. Now Doug is overbetting the river for about 1.3x pot or so.
Takes it down.
He follows through again on the left, and he does get 3 streets of value. There we see Doug check raising the king 9, which we kind of talked about, something you don't really do too much check raising on those kinds of boards. I mean, maybe versus small bets, you obviously do a bit, but there he's choosing to go for value with really the weakest king. Obviously, the kicker is basically never going to play. Pretty interesting to see that. He does use those smaller sizes on the turn and river. Was the flop? I believe the flop check raise was one of those hilariously small, Daniel bets 400, Doug makes it 900 too. So
yeah, those are always the fun ones. The paired boards, definitely, especially the more dry ones, they lead that. They lead to a lot more small raising just because you never have a ton of equity against the range anyway. So no matter how small they go, there's a portion of your range that just hates it.
Right. Definitely something that's going to be magnified heads up with how wide ranges are. You're just going to have nothing with so much of your range on so many different boards.
Yeah. And then obviously, especially in someone like Daniel, who's got way less experience, really challenging Daniel to navigate those super wide range spots against super small raises. Someone's asking about bankroll management. I'm not going to go too deep on this, but because everyone asks that everywhere. But general rule of thumb is just whenever you're concerned, if you're a winning player, yada yada, just always take shots. You don't need a set bankroll, because if you ever are in worry if things are going the wrong way, move down in stakes. You can always just adjust. You don't really need a set bankroll strategy. Just have a risk tolerance and move up and down within that risk tolerance.
Make sure you're able to move down, though. Exactly. Very important. Don't take the shots if you think you might be one of those types of people who feel like you have to get it back or something at the higher stakes. You need to be prepared to move back down. Otherwise, it's just a recipe for disaster. You're essentially giving yourself risk of ruin for no reason.
Whenever you approach that spot, it's probably a good idea to head down. You should never really be at a high chance of risk of ruin at any point in your poker career. You're playing too high.
The groupie XO, in the history of poker, has anyone ever moved down in stakes? It's funny.
At least temporarily. It's hard to stay down in stakes when you've played higher, though.
Definitely. I had a buddy who, when I was playing live poker a lot, who just refused to move down, and it was just like so sad to see him just like slowly torch his bankroll. Like, it was so sad, and it was so obvious it was going to happen.
Same thing with like you have guys who've played say 500 and 1,000 NL live, and then they go to play online, and they like the idea of playing 100 NL or 200 of them is like crazy. Like how like I play way bigger than this. It's like it's not the same game, and you're going to make more money playing lower stakes online than you would have live.
Right.
See a pretty small pot. I think check call, just check down. Makes sense.
Yeah, on the left.
Daniel's hand.
Yep, not much value to be had there. On the right, we have a 3-bet pot that checked down.
Definitely could see some blocks here from Daniel. Gets to this river and has some hands that want to squeak out a bit of value. He does check. And wins with the 9s.
Nice one for Daniel there. Oh, it's nice to get the check down when you have a hand like that.
Yeah,
although I guess
check.
Yeah, it's kind of a hand you're kind of happy to bluff catch with, though, right? It's like pretty high up there, so I guess depends how you feel about bluff catching, really. Then.
It's true. I'm a fan myself, but not everyone is. See a 3-bet from Doug on the right, and a 3-bet and C-bet on the left. Small C-bet on this board makes a lot of sense. Turn ace, not going to be a ton of like you can build a strategy that has like a lot of blocks on this turn, but doesn't really seem like Doug's style. He does go for the check.
Three bet from Daniel on the right now as well. Four bet from Doug, $10,800.
This is pretty interesting from DNeggs. Decides to block versus the turn check.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, he does have, maybe it's a situation where he's thinking like, he just has a lot of like, I mean, you usually want to do that when you have more hands that you're denying equity, right? That's sort of, I assume that's maybe what's going through your mind, why it's weird. Because like, with the hands you're betting small with, you don't really care about denying equity with like an ace, because there's no overs. But perhaps he's thinking his range is very ace heavy, and he wants to like bet small a lot with a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. And does like, honestly, it's still not, just because it's a small bet doesn't mean it's easy for Doug to play against out of position. So there are merits to that strategy. It's just not what you'd expect when the ace hits on the turn.
Daniel does take it down with a river bet. He's going to win that 18K pot.
Because you think in that spot, anything that wants to thin value bet the turn, that doesn't feel comfortable big betting, which should just be used in your check back range to make sure that you have some easy calls on the river.
Right, for sure. Quietly, we've got a 36K pot ballooning on the right. Doug 4-betting and then C-betting small on the flop. He bet about 7K on the flop into about 21. Got called.
Could have some shoves here. It would be more so out of position, but definitely on like once you get to this spot, like, you know, obviously a hand like kings could benefit from it, but smallish range. So he does decide to check, and then pretty good spot for Daniel to like both turn some stuff into bluffs and then also just river good hand.
Oh, that's funny. My dog, your dog's heard the dog that's at my house and then barked.
I was wondering what that was.
Yeah. Yours sound a lot bigger. Yours sound about 7 times bigger. I'm going to guess they're about 60 pounds.
Yeah, I've seen your dog before. Ours is an Australian Shepherd, so yeah, a bit bigger.
Nice. So this is actually a visiting dog, but yeah. DNX does get paid there on the right with a straight. Open ender on the flop, top pair on the turn, straight on the river. Seems like Doug, to call that river, maybe a 2-pair with an 8, perhaps. It's kind of the most obvious thing.
Because like obviously DNeggs blocks the queen, so it's good size from DNeggs, especially when he's queen 10, because you block the easiest hero calls from Doug. So you could have multiple sizes, and having like a half pot size with that type of hand seems pretty good. Show Aussie Shepherd. I was planning on like, I know Mike every now and then so you're saying this dog is the dog that's come on camera is not your dog? It's one you've been.
No, that's my dog, but I have a friend over who has his dog with us, so.
Yeah, so I know you've always, like, when they bark, you bring them on stream.
Yeah. That is Twitch rules. Oh, we have one, actually. This is Hershey. He's a mini poodle.
Is this his debut? Is like
he's never been. I don't think he's ever been on camera.
He's killing.
He's looking at his dad. He's real nervous. You guys make him nervous. You have the same effect on me, chat. Daniel wins a small showdown on the left with a pair.
Three bet and take it from Doug.
Daniel's re-extended his lead after Doug made a small comeback. Daniel now up about 130.
Did you are we getting any interesting questions from the Twitch chat today or from Twitch and YouTube for Doug?
We got, what's the most degen thing you've ever seen a poker player do live? I like that one. We're definitely gonna ask him that. Someone else wanted to know if he's gonna make mainstream quote unquote videos again, like when he was making videos about like random stuff on his like just Doug Polk channel, like nothing specialized. So we'll ask him that. That's all so far. See if Twitter has any.
Crowdsourcing just makes our job easier, eh? Just let the masses come up with the questions for us.
We are still collecting questions, guys. So if you have questions for Doug after the stream, usually Doug just looks at his hand replayer and then just like looks through and sees if there's any interesting hands he wants to talk about. So if you have a hand question, feel free to drop it. But just FYI, more than likely, whatever hand you ask about is either going to be covered or it's something that Doug is not willing to talk about. So it's like kind of a moot point either way. So if you have any questions more about, I mean, again, hand questions are fine, but more stuff about peripheral stuff about the challenge or just about life, feel free to drop it.
Check. Doug does go bet here on the right. Depending on what his flop, depending on how wide Doug bets flop, pretty easy to just have a ton of bluffs and a ton of value in this spot. And Daniel goes for the check raise and takes it down. Pretty quick bet fold from Doug. I don't know if you asked that one before, but it's actually an interesting question. If Doug has any rituals for match day, does he?
Yeah, I don't remember what his answer was, to be honest. I think it was kind of what you'd expect, like tries to eat good. I think he works out, like stuff like that. But it was if you guys do want to hear all of the other interviews, just go to Doug's YouTube channel and skip to the end of the sessions and you can hear our interviews with him. But he's definitely covered his like sort of pre-match preparation, even a lot of questions about during the match. A lot of stuff has been covered. So if you have what might be an obvious question, there's a good chance it's already been answered. You might want to go listen to those other Doug interviews. There's probably like a good 2.5 hours of Doug interview content just at the end of all those videos. So if that's the kind of thing that interests you, go check it out, youtube.com/DougPolkPoker. It's also probably in the Twitch VODs, but I don't really know how it works, so I'm hesitant to promise that they're there.
Yeah, it's easier to just go to the YouTube. You know it's there.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, and then I guess you also did the AMA. You said somewhat recently too, right?
Yeah, he did an AMA on Reddit like, I want to say like 10 days ago, roughly, like 8 days ago maybe.
How long was the break between their sessions, like this break that they just had?
The last session was the 11th.
Okay.
So it's like 2 weeks ago, but the Friday. It's obviously Monday. So Trip Jacks gets paid off for Doug on the left.
Small bet on the right, which seems pretty good. And turn 3, when Doug just check calls, would expect a lot of big betting here again. Like you can be pretty aggressive on the deuce because out of position, like a lot of low cards out of position can have an advantage. Not as much in heads up as it would be in 6 max, but in this spot. Like Doug's never gonna have that much 2x that you really have to be that worried about it. So as we say that, D-Nigs does go for the big bet. When we see a king on the river, pretty like cleanish run out for Daniel's. Like Daniel should be value betting this river pretty thinly. He can again have multiple sizes here. You can pick one. If he has pocket nines here, it's a pretty easy triple. And then if he has anything better than pocket nines, like obviously, so like a hand like this is probably a pretty good give up, obviously, since he does win.
Not value.
The overbet on the turn is like interesting with a hand that strong. It's like doesn't really need to bluff, doesn't really have that much equity, so it's like right on the borderline. So who knows? Maybe just RNG'd it. Or maybe it was a super sick thin value bet for overbet.
Could be time for another chat question. A little bit of a lull in the action. Kind of feel like, I mean, I'm getting a little sleepy. I don't know about you. Man, you're 3 hours ahead of me too, so I mean, if you're not, credit to you. Here we go. What do we got for him? I have a notepad with like just a bunch of questions to ask chat. So like when I'm just like existing in life, I'm like, you know what I would want to ask chat right now? And then I write it down. I already asked that one. All right, I got it. Would you rather? I'm actually going to make this a poll on Twitch, so cliffhanger. Daniel check raises on the right.
Again, he goes for the smallest check raise. Again, these are like good spots to go kind of small. While Mike writes the poll, I'll kind of try and...
Yeah, thanks.
So check raise flop, and then now he's not going to use as much. He can still have a small bet range here, but he also go quite big. He does go for the check, so check raise check. He's going to have like a lot of check folds here. He can have some double check raises. So check raise check to get some bets in, then check raises again. And now we see a 6 river. This would be one of those spots I'd be really interested to see if Daniel has the check raise, check, check, and then now bets river with like a bluff. They're kind of unnatural spots because you don't really feel like you rep much when you go check raise, check, check. And as you see, like he has queen high, random check raise on the flop. As you see, Doug doesn't fold king high. So it's like, it's kind of just a whatever check raise. Seems kind of, doesn't have much equity, doesn't really accomplish a ton. So it's probably just straight bad. Try not to be too like good or bad, but like that hand in particular seems kind of weird to use as a check raise. And then when he doesn't bluff it on the river in that line, kind of just seems like he check raised without a plan on the flop. Ryan, what was your biggest 500 NL Zoom day? Unfortunately, not 35 buy-ins up. It used to, for most of my career, my biggest days have been better than my worst days, but now it's going to be hard to top that. So I would think somewhere more in like the 20 buy-in range would be my biggest day.
Okay, I've almost got this ready. There was a bit of a hiccup because there weren't enough characters for the options that I wanted to give, so I had to do some copywriting on the spot here. All right, so I'm making a straw poll for you guys on YouTube, so you can vote as well, in a way that's a little bit more official. So I'm dropping it now. Here's what it is, guys. Would you rather win a World Series of Poker event, not the main event, for $500,000, or get 5th in some other side event for $750,000? So more money for the second one, but no bracelet.
I think I know my answer.
Hold on to it for a minute.
No spoilers.
Drop your vote. Straw poll is linked on YouTube. What do you think they're going to say, if you had to guess?
It's hard, like, if most poker players are, like, say most of this audience is, like, active poker players, I feel like they're going to want to go for the win because, like, the feeling of the win is worth just so much. But 250K extra is also worth quite a lot.
Yeah, 250K is a lot of money.
Yeah.
I maybe should have made it closer, but I've done these polls on the Upswing like socials before, and I've been shocked at how much value people put on the on the win. Like I think one time we had like 500K or 1 million, and people and like so many people were choosing the 500K. That was like Instagram though, where it's a little bit more casual of an audience compared to like people watching a 200-400 heads up match on Twitch and YouTube. But
especially like heads up, no cards exposed like match. Like these are usually the more poker enthusiast people who, just want to see poker as a whole.
Right.
But yeah, like it's funny when people say that, like that they would rather. You think that's more of an in the moment thing. Like at the outset, you just see a ton of money. You're like, yeah, give me the bigger prize pool. And in the moment, you might be disappointed that you didn't win it, but like whatever. I just won 750K. But it's easy to say sitting here like I want the win.
Yeah, it looks like we're having a solid win for the fifth with no bracelet.
Maybe you've
70%.
Maybe you've talked them into their senses that the extra money goes a long way.
Yeah. Also, this is not as fun of a reason, but bracelets are not as valuable as they used to be. You can't just like snap your fingers and get a sponsorship because you're a bracelet winner. It's not quite that easy now. So,
also, a lot of the viewers are probably cash regs, and so they know that the extra 250K just means more money to play with at the tables, right? Like,
hell yeah,
they don't need the accolades in their field.
No, in fact, they don't even really want them, right? You want to get action, you want to get invited to games, etc.
No one wants. You don't want your name on a magazine or whatever it may be for winning.
Definitely not. Daniel overbetting on the left here on this 5 straight board, going for 5,400 into 4K.
Seems good. Like on this type of board, obviously on the 5 straights, it's pretty good to overbet, especially if you think you have the 8x advantage. I didn't see the action exactly. Was it bet or?
There had to be a check at some point.
Oh yeah, I think he checked flop.
Ooh, Doug just calling with the 8. He's thinking about raising, but decided that Daniel's not going to call unless he's chopping or losing. So makes sense that Doug just goes for the call there.
Could be another thing too, where stack sizes play a part. If you raise there that stack depth and Daniel jams, it's like not great.
No, it's not.
and Doug's not going to want to fold in that spot, but like that's the hand. If so, hypothetically, Doug raises there and Daniel has a bluff. The 10-9 is the hand you just shovel in the middle with blocking 8-9 and having like no showdown, right? So who knows?
Yeah, that was definitely good for him. 4-bet from Doug gets through on the left.
I'm not drinking a Pilsner. I'm drinking a dry hopped sour. So
I've never been into sours.
I've started drinking them a bit more recently. This just came with like a variety pack, so it's one of the 4. So just enjoying whatever I grab out of the pack. See a small bet on the left, which is going to be high frequency small bet board from the button on this board. Just Daniel's going to have the high card advantage, so very difficult for Doug to defend against. As we saw earlier on a like somewhat similar texture, Doug had to float like 7 high on a texture like that, 7 high with just a backdoor. So sometimes very difficult to defend appropriately.
My brain just keeps going to this experience I had in London where I went to my girlfriend and I were just going to a bunch of different pubs and just grabbing like one of those barrel cranked beers, and one of them we got was called the Speckled Hen, and the ones we were getting, they're not like cold, they're not refrigerated at all. Oh wait, I'm gonna pause for a second because Doug just 4-bet on the left, 10.8K into 36 after 3,600 from Daniel. Really deep here, so we could see a big pot.
That stack depth that Daniel could bust out the 24K, but he does just call. And we're going to the flop.
Cask beers, thank you, strike it up. That word was escaping me. Yeah, just to finish that story real quick, I had the Speckled Hen. It was not cold, and then I took a sip of it. It was like this disgusting, sour, horrible taste, like that I guess people like. But it was like it's ruined me for a long time on like anything sour, like any unusual flavored beer. I'm like, no thanks.
Well, and now especially if you're not drinking beer, if you are gonna like randomly cheat and drink beer, you're not having the beer that
No,
you have that memory with.
certainly not.
I got
So
nothing because I can have this, and if I don't like it, I just grab another one. I don't have to
Yes.
wrap in my beer drinking.
Yeah, for sure.
We do
Doug,
see a
Doug went for 7K on the flop on the left and got called.
sizes up like a little bit for the situation due to stack size and the texture. Like Jack high, you're going to size up a little bit more than you would on say king or queen or ace high draws and 4-bet pots. Just as a product of like having more overpairs and then overpairs needing to put a bit more money in early because they're not going to be the nuts as much on later streets. Anyways, see the bet, check on the flush complete. And now Daniel has a bunch of options available to him. He does go for the large bet. Minimum value threshold for this type of hand in this spot is probably like Jack 10, I would think.
Any two pair, I would imagine, but it's hard to have a two pair that's not Jack 10. So
exactly. I don't think he's going to be in here with we saw him flat the 5-3 suited, but I don't think he has the 6 deuce or 6-3 suited in this range.
It's tough. But we've seen some crazy stuff in the 4-bet calls. As Dom Niche said in the chat, did someone just mix in a minus EV 4-bet call because he loves to make that joke, mixing in the losing plays.
Keep every range balanced, right?
Got to keep them balanced, even if it means you lose EV overall. That's just poker in 2020, baby.
And he does win the pot.
Another nice one for Daniel. He's
definitely. We've had a few of them today where would be really interesting to see where Daniel's drawing his bluffs from in that spot. Not exactly the most obvious situation to find a ton of bluffs for that size and in that exact line. Someone's asking where I'm from. I'm from close to Toronto, so just like an hour outside of Toronto. And someone was asking if I do stream. I do stream a bit, not as much as I used to, but I stream. I do have a YouTube channel. I stream a bit, so here and there. See I believe this one check bet, and then we see a river queen. Actually, I think it was just bet, and then Doug does win with the 2 pair, kings and deuces. Am I in Barrie? I'm not in Barrie, but I've been through Barrie a lot. I used to have a cottage up in Parry Sound, so drove through Barrie quite a lot. See a small bet from Doug on the left on Jack 9-9. And I was going to say, these are the boards that D-Negs has been raising. We saw him raise, the other board was like ace 3-3, and then he raised a king X for small size. This is even smaller than the other side. This is basically min. And Doug does call. Someone's asking if Jack 10 would have folded to a shove on that in that 4-bet pot. It'd be interesting. Probably not, because you saw D-Negs. It's obviously not the same hand strength, but in a similar spot, D-Negs bet called the river with a straight on a 4 flush, or 3 flush, sorry. So in that spot, Doug doesn't really. I mean, Daniel's got 2 pair, and Doug doesn't really have any straights. So when he reps a flush or air in those spots, if Daniel's calling with a straight, there's not much difference between a straight and 2 pair in that spot because neither of them block Doug's value range. So you're just kind of picking and choosing. So it's going to be hard for Daniel to fold 2 pair in that spot if he's not folding a straight in the other spot.
Yeah, we know Doug can bluff those spots too that you may not think people are bluffing, like when it's like a small re-raise, or a small raise, so it's maybe like a bet and then shove for 2.3x or something like that, or 2.5x the bet. We've seen Doug bluff in that line multiple times in the challenge. So, if your opponent does have bluffs and you think they can have some, top 2 pairs probably going to be good enough to click the call button.
Yeah, which is somewhat interesting because if that's the worst hand Daniel value bets, right? We were kind of talking about what's the worst hand Daniel value bets. Probably supposed to bet fold it, but then it's again, is Daniel really comfortable bet folding 2 pair in that spot to Doug? Seems unlikely.
Yeah, maybe not. And yeah, that's a good point. Perhaps, in theory, it certainly would be a fold, right? But who knows how, if it's the bottom of your value range. Who knows how the spot functions in practice?
Yeah. when you start getting those deep heads up spots, it's hard to know what happens in all parts of the game tree. So this spot is checked down to the river and river 4 flush. So Daniel should still actually have a decent amount of like nut flushes in this line. So should have some value raises, and then he has to find some bluffs for that too. He does snap fold in this spot. Doesn't really mean anything, but yeah, should have some raises there. With just as much as it might seem weird, you can't just raise that river when you have a flush. So you need to find some just complete garbage that raises the river as well.
Good points for sure. Joe Blue asks a question that we've gotten a lot today, and we get it a lot basically every stream or some version of it. Basically, how do we know that Daniel's really playing? We know there's no cheating going on, but that's one of our FAQs. So if you want to head over to our FAQ about the challenge, type command FAQ in the chat, exclamation point FAQ. Check out the FAQ. We got answers to that question and a host of others that we commonly get asked about the challenge. But to answer your question quickly, no one in this chat, neither player is cheating. That's just no way.
It's nice to just have like a very reputable heads up match where you know both parties are just out here battling and you don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
For sure. I mean, they did. If the people check the FAQ, they will see that there are measures in place to make sure that both players are playing themselves and not using any sort of RTA and all that stuff. Just such a high stakes match. It's even if it's a small percent chance that's happening, it's very significant when you consider it's a small percent chance of getting cheated out of millions of dollars. So they do both have cameras, 360-degree cameras in the rooms they're playing in. So we know there's no funny business going on at all. But yeah, go check out that FAQ if you want answers to other questions, such as why are there no hole cards and is there a side bet? And why is the commentary biased in favor of Doug, which we still get that one quite a bit.
See a small bet on the flop, then check turn, and Daniel checks river. Pretty good run out for Daniel's continuing range. 6-7 completes, and then all of his other low cards have like either completed two pairs straights, and then obviously ace high is still top pair, or ace x is still top pair. Doug does bet 2/3, and now Daniel has to just make the appropriate hero call with whatever he's decided to check here. Might be a spot he's
Let's go for the check raise. Daniel's found a lot of river aggression today. In general,
if he's building a strategy of checking a lot of strong hands, then the benefit of his play, even though it might lose value in other spots, is he gets to set this play up quite well. And then again, it's just up to Doug to figure out which portion he wants to hero call with.
He does lay it down.
We do see I think this went bet check on the left, and D-Nex checks river. Could be setting up the check raise again. Seems a bit less likely on this texture though. We do see the big bet and the call, and 2-pair queens and deuces for Doug beats whatever hero call we saw from Daniel. Another small bet on the right and a check raise from Doug. See a call, and then the flush completes. Definitely can see a lot of small betting here from Doug when he decides to bet. As we've talked about, this just like allows you to bet a bit more aggressively for value, and then also puts D-Negs in a tough spot. He does go for the check. And a 3-bet pot on the left, we see 9-8 deuce. Rainbow texture, good board for Doug's overpairs. Could definitely see some bigger bets on this flop. Can stick to the smaller size just because of stack sizes. But yeah, like some sort of big bet here also makes sense. He goes for the check. And we see D-Negs go for a pretty hefty bet versus the check raise check. River flush complete. Backdoor boat. So not that many boats in Doug's range, mainly just some 3s and 6s. He does have king 6, so who knows if he was gonna. I doubt he's gonna turn that hand into a check raise. Probably just gonna check call that one, depending on the size and stuff. But he does take the pot. Pretty interesting from Daniel. Daniel's clearly bluffing the turn if he takes that size and then loses straight up to Doug's hand, because you can't have a worse hand than king 6. Any other king is either chopping or beating Doug. So yeah, he was bluffing with something.
On the left, we have a check raise from Doug in a 3-bet pot.
We've seen Daniel stabbing a lot in these spots, first checks. Check raise, not a great card for a lot of Doug's check raise range because he will obviously, he can have pocket aces, he can have ace nine, but a lot of his other ace X are going to go in his like check call line. And then his overpairs 10s through kings don't love this turn. Doesn't mean he doesn't ever get to bet, but yeah, you will see a lot of checking as we do. And this is a spot. So we saw in the spot earlier when the ace turned that D-Neg's bet, and I said it was kind of weird to block. This turn is different. In this scenario, I could see D-Neg's having some blocks on this turn. He does check, and then the river's very dynamic. All the straights complete. So now pretty good spot for actually Daniel's range because Doug's going to barrel a lot of his straight draws on this turn, and then he's not going to have many other hands that interact with the 7. So yeah, when he bets, this size makes sense because he's not really repping the nut portion of his range. He's repping kind of more he can still have the nuts in this line, but he's more representing just like thinner value than say the nuts. And D-Negs gets to shove here if he likes to. He has some hands that clearly want to shove. They're pretty deep. He can turn some hands into bluffs. If he has a hand like 10-7 here, pretty good hand to just shove it in the middle, 6-7, these type of hands. The hands that block river 2 pairs, and there we go.
He does just raise though.
And
quick fold from Doug.
Pretty disgusting run out for a lot of Doug's check raise. Check, like you can't really ask for worse cards that aren't 4 straights than ace 7 in that line.
Right. Yeah. I think it's fairly likely Doug did have a hand like 2 queens there or something. I think that's kind of the hand that wants to take that line.
And you basically take that size and like hope Daniel doesn't raise you and kind of just like gets hero call-ish. And obviously you can't defend against much with queens in that spot, but it's worth a bet. We do see a raise and overbet on the ace jack 7 rainbow. And a small bet and a 3. The pots are getting fast and big now. Maybe they've had a few drinks themselves. I don't think they're drinking during these sessions, but the action is getting a bit feisty. So on this turn, I would expect some really big bets from Doug again because 4 is a complete brick. Whatever Doug was big betting flop with is still the nuts on this turn, and he does take it down.
Doug, pretty close to the starting stack on both tables. Never what you want when you're in a heads-up match, to be the guy who's creeping around that $40,000 mark. Especially
because not like unordinary for these sessions, but it feels like Doug's been dictating a lot of the action. Obviously, D-Negs has had some, like we just saw him raise the river in that other spot. There's been some river raises, but especially on early streets, the multi-street aggression, say like the hand like pocket 4s and stuff, feels like Doug's really been dictating the action, but has not been getting the results this session.
Life Coach 69 asks, has Daniel ever been caught bluff raising in a big pot? I'm going to assume you mean specifically in this match versus Doug, and they've played over 11,000 hands now, man. Of course he's been caught bluff raising the river. Of course.
If he had never been caught bluff raising, do you think Doug would still be hero calling in these spots? Like if literally he had never bluffed?
Not as much. I think but yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like people just, that question is very indicative of sort of what we see. A lot of the chat we see around this match of like, Daniel never bluffs. It's just because he doesn't bluff as much, so you don't see quite as many. Come on, guys. He bluffs. He's bluffing sometimes. You can argue some lines he doesn't bluff in or whatever, but
people love to talk in absolutes when it comes to poker. This is never a bluff. This is always value, that type of thing.
It's not frustrating as a training site operator at all. Trust me.
At least you always have clients, right? Because there's always people that teach that there's no absolutes in poker.
For sure. Alex Dad 82 says another channel has Kane Callis on commentary tonight. Do you guys respect his game? Hell yeah, I respect Kane Callis's game. He is the fantastic Upswing Poker short deck instructor. Go check out his course on short deck over on Upswing. It's really good. If you want to just like get good at a game that no one else is good at and that you could just kind of crush because no one's playing it right really, at the lower stakes at least, check out that course. It's really good. We had one member, he was actually in the tester group for it, so he was just like testing the court, like quality checking the course essentially. And in mid-February, I want to say, he was up like 120K playing like mid to mid to middle high stakes short deck on stars. It's pretty insane. So yeah, check that out. King Cal's short deck course. But yeah, he's great. King Cal's is awesome.
Ryan, have you ever played Daniel? I've never played Daniel. The most, say, famous poker player I've played was a misclick, where when I was playing much smaller stakes, I accidentally misclicked and joined the 25-50 Zoom pool, and Linus was in my small blind, and he just like 3x opened the small blind. I had a hand like, I don't even remember what it was like Jack 9 off, like a clear defend. I just snap folded and sat out because it was literally 50 times my current stake. And it's just like, I'm not playing this, like nothing good can come of this. I'm out, right? So
right.
Costly misclick. It's like half my buy-in at that time just playing the big blind. So that's the most famous player I've played against, I guess.
That's a good one. I have a good Helmuth story. If you guys want to hear a Helmuth story, drop a 1 in the chat if you want to hear a Helmuth story. 2 if you don't. I gotta leave that avenue open. If the 2s are really overwhelming, I will not tell the story. Check raise from Doug on the right on this 4 flush board. Always interesting to see this kind of thing happen.
Yeah, this is where it takes a lot of understanding of the game to find the right bluffs in this line, because everyone knows how to check raise the river here when you have the ace of hearts or 5-7 of hearts exactly. Finding the bluffs to match that, a lot more difficult. And
we did see Doug find one of these bluffs I think it was last session. He bet 3-bet the river on a 4 flush board with the 7 of diamonds, and like a straight flush was possible and the ace of diamonds was on the board, and Daniel just called with the king of diamonds, of course, not that he could ever 4-bet it. Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's interesting to, how do you decide which diamonds to bluff there? It's hard to say.
Yeah, those are, when you find them, they're great. They don't often work, but they got to be in there sometimes, right?
They got to be in there.
And we do see Daniel in the tank. Obviously, part of this can be, like, if Doug doesn't think Daniel's balancing this size, it makes Doug's bluff a bit easier. It also lowers the threshold of raising. Like, if Doug doesn't respect Daniel's ability to value bet this size with the ace of hearts, he can start check raising the king of hearts and etc.
All right, so Doug going for the small bet on the left. I'll start telling the Phil Hellmuth story, and then as this hand goes, we'll keep it going. So the first WSOP event I ever played, Daniel calls. First WSOP event I ever played was a Millionaire Maker event, $1,500 buy-in. Phil Hellmuth sat to my right after about an hour and a half of play. He shows up super late, sits down in the empty seats, like a floor, puts his chips there, like clearly got the VIP treatment. I'm going to pause for a sec as Doug pots the turn here on the 7-7-2-3 board, setting up about a pot-sized river jam, but the turn bet gets through. So he sits down on my right. Like I said, the floor puts his chips there, like very much the VIP treatment. It's one of those, the WSOP, for those who haven't played it, or at least this particular year, they're very sticklery about like people being past the like ribbons or past the like dividers where like the observers are supposed to be and then the players. So you can't just have someone like behind you, right? Ever, really, if you're in like the middle of the room. And Helmuth just had like 2 people, like this older couple, and they were just like chilling with him for like a good 45 minutes. Floor was even like right next to him, saying nothing, of course. Like, I mean, they're just happy he's playing a tournament. And we played a lot of hands that day, and he played a lot of hands, and he was like in his top form with no cameras on him. He uttered, "Idiot doesn't even know how to spell poker." Again, no cameras. It's just saying this about someone across the table as if it's like normal table chat at like a 2-5 game at your local casino. This guy doesn't even know how to spell poker. Said idiot like 50 times. Doug's river bet gets through on the right. 3-bet pot on the left. Daniel going for a 3/4 pot bet, or 2/3 maybe. I'll pause on the story for a sec.
Now this is like this spot. Obviously, this makes a lot of sense to have some bigger bets on this texture. Like, obviously, you just have to, it's a more advanced strategy. You have to have some big bets and checks if you're going to go. You can't just bet everything for that size that Daniel's taking. So clearly he's going for a bigger bet and check strategy on this flop, or a big bet and a small bet. Both. You could just decide to bet everything on this texture, but not really one that obviously makes a ton of sense to do that. And he does take it down with a double barrel.
Nice spot for Daniel there. So there was one particular moment where there's a couple hands I'll tell you about that I played versus Helmuth, but in one situation, this guy like bet the river, and then this kid bet the river. A guy raises, and then he gets 3-bet on the river on a 3 flush board. and the guy like makes a hero fold with something, as he should probably, and Helmuth says, he's like talking with the guy, and he's talking about like, because apparently the guy folded like a medium flush, and Helmuth was like, well, you never know with these kids, they might just be blasting it in there with like the 4-3 of hearts, which is like, so he's suggesting that just because the person is young, he's gonna bet 3-bet shove the river with like the lowest possible flush in a spot where like you're only getting called by better. And I said to Helmuth, I was like, because he's literally like right next to him, he's a massive human, very much a presence. I said to him like, come on, Phil, like no one shoves that. No one would shove that. And he's like, this kid might have some skills. It's like too epic. So then the two hands I played against him, he opens button, I 3-bet kings in the small, he flats. The flop comes like 8-5-3. I think I might check the flop and maybe call a bet. Turns a 7 of clubs, putting like a second club. Or I don't know if I said there were 2 clubs on the flop, but whatever. 2 clubs by the turn. 8-7 are the relevant cards. Turn, I check call. River brick. Check, check. But he doesn't actually check. He just flips his cards up to look at them in disgust. And what he's looking at in disgust is the fact that he has 10-9 of clubs, which is a missed straight and flush draw. But he actually has 10 of spades and 9 of clubs. He like misread his hand, and I'm just like there for it. Like he looks at it, he's like, oh shoot, I thought I had a straight and a flush draw. So like I can't imagine Helmuth does that often. So I was thrilled that I got to be like the benefactor of that. 5K pot on the left, 3K pot on the right. Quickly finish the story. So then I ended up busting him in the tournament, where he opens, I flat ace queen suited, get an ace high board, and I just like triple barreled and got the stack, and then he just like quietly walked off. It was pretty phenomenal. First up ace at the event. Could not have gone better.
The idiot from wherever comment, or this young kid idiot doesn't even know how to spell any of that stuff as he exited?
No, that was about someone across the table who like beat him in a pot. That was probably standard. You know, he just wanted to needle the guy.
But he took your beat in stride. The bad.
Yeah, I mean, I had ace queen on ace high board. Like, what are you gonna say? And I'm sure he like hero called. So like, what is he gonna say? Like, and plus, I told him I wouldn't bet 3-bet jam the lowest possible flush on the river. So how can he critique my play? Such an expert.
You clearly understand relative hand strength.
Right. Again, none of that was on TV, guys. He just acted like that for the sport of it. It's who he is when he's in that room. All right, anyway, back to the action.
We see I believe, bet check on the left from Doug. Daniel's going to have a ton of potential bluffs on this run out. He's also going to have 10-9. Yep, he does have the 10-8.
Doug picked him off there? Yeah, I picked him off.
He called the river with the rivered queen.
All right, guys, drop your official predictions in chat. How much longer are we going today? Another hour, another 30 minutes, another 10 minutes, another 5 minutes? Drop it in chat. How much longer are we going? When is Negreanu and Doug going to call it quits? Emphasis on Negreanu.
Feels like D-Negs is up. They've had a bit of a break. Those should influence your guys' decisions. I saw 8 hours. I mean, I'm enjoying my time here, but I'm hoping it's not 8 hours. Sorry, Mike.
I also don't want it to be 8 hours. We might, if it goes to like hour 7, we might have to just like throw on some music and leave you guys.
We're off the clock at that point.
Yeah, exactly. 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 27 minutes, 4 minutes, and 8 seconds. Very, very precise. I respect it.
This one, did this go check, check? Yeah, check, check, and then 40%.
Right.
Let me see a call and check raise on the right. Bigger this time on the 8-4-4 than D-Negs have been check raising on some of those paired boards. And wow, D-Negs checks and loses to Queen 7.
I mean, it's possible he had what, Queen 3 or something, you know? Like, who knows? Pretty reasonable if you have Queen 3, right? But
seems like a spot where Doug shouldn't get to win the pot very often with that hand.
No, definitely not.
Those are the calls you make on the turn because you feel like, oh, well, I got to continue. I have Queen 9 a flush draw, but you're not really expecting to win the pot that often. And spots like that kind of just like give extra equity to Doug.
Well, really random question from Giovanni Resendi asks, how do you feel or what do you think about the post-flop engine nowadays? Post-flop engine is the former name for Upswing Poker's introductory poker strategy product, the post-flop game plan. It's like a 45-minute to 1 hour like mini course, if you will. Does not take long to complete it all. That just teaches you a very, very basic uh, way to approach poker that's very, very reasonable. So even if you basically, you're very much a beginner, you just like know the hand rankings, the positions, like very basic stuff. This is kind of for you. It's just going to teach you like a very solid baseline little strategy that you can learn quickly. It's $7 over on Upswing Poker. And to answer your question, Giovanni, we feel really good about it. It's an amazing on ramp for people. A lot of people buy that, then join the lab or get our other training products. And an actual surprising number of people have started with the post-flop game plan, and now they're like playing like mid stakes live, low stakes online pretty successally. So yeah, go check out the post-flop game plan if you're interested. Sorry to cut you off, Ryan. I'm sure you're going to say it was a 3-bet pot on the left.
Well, I was also going to say that like I didn't know you guys had that tool, and that's really smart. Like that type of tool to hit that market is like perfect because there's so many people who benefit from that, right? They have like an idea, but they just need someone to kind of hold their hand a little bit and be like, all right, like head down this way, you'll kind of figure stuff as you go, right?
Yeah, especially all the free content in poker nowadays. Like if you're a beginner, it's gonna be crazy. People talking about blockers and shit. The post-flop game plan does not talk about blockers. Let me tell you that. It's not important. It's just a fundamental strategy that'll win in your like 1-2 game, your live 1-2 games, your micro stakes online games, things like that.
I was gonna say that. Like you don't need to know about blockers to beat a lot of live games. So if you guys are in that camp, like having not even used the product, I would just assume having used some of Upswing's product, definitely worth, the $7 investment seems reasonable.
Right. For sure. I mean, we've sold like 30,000 of them, so I think it's yeah, exactly. It's a popular product. People know it's good. 8,700 on the left from Doug now.
2 big pots, both with Doug putting the money in the middle. Both paired boards with a 3 flush too. And we see a check raise from Daniel. Now, this is a spot I would think Daniel can find the appropriate bluffs. Pretty easy to find bluffs in this spot because you're just going to arrive at the river with a lot of good blocker hands that make sense to bluff with. So I think like you'll see more hero calls from Doug in this line. And then on the left, Daniel does win a big pot with the kings. I believe that was 3-bet block, check, call, check.
I believe you're right. Yeah, he check called turn. So Doug perhaps going for some thin value on the turn with like a pair of some kind.
Or was bluffing with like a 10 something.
Oh, actually, Negreanu check called flop. And then I think check called turn as well. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't see the action exactly on the right. Yeah, I think in this spot, it is like people are saying Daniel never bluffs. This is a spot I think Daniel can find bluffs. Like there's just hands that fit. You don't want to call this spot. You should have some strong hands in this line. It's just a matter of how thinly Daniel's check raising this spot for value. If it's like a good jack, there you go, right? So there, I said like he's gonna have hands that make sense to bluff in this line, and there's the type of hand that makes sense to bluff, right? So I'm expecting to see some hands like that, and then some like random pair plus flush draw blockers that don't think they're good enough to call. So like pretty good play from when it takes that long for Doug to call the river. Pretty good play from Daniel. Whenever someone tank calls the river and you're bluffing, don't beat yourself up over it. Probably means your bluff is pretty good.
Indeed. Yeah, get your dongers out for that one, guys, over on Twitch. Drop the dongers in the chat. If you want to throw a truck emote on Twitch too, or a truck emoji, you have plenty of those. The truck not so much being backed up today, though. Oh, Daniel does put the double dot. Looks like we are GG for the day. Daniel's going to have to settle for his roughly, 110K win today, approximately? Maybe a little less.
What are the chances that missed bluff influenced his decision to sit out? It seems like he was rather quickly sitting out, so I'm going to say not that likely, but you never know, right?
Yeah, I'm going to say no.
Check down pot to the river, and Doug goes for pretty hefty bet with a king, gets some nice value. King no kicker, good enough for a big bet from Doug.
All right, guys, so that's all she wrote for the poker and the cards and the chips and all that today, but we still got Doug joining us for a quick chat. If you guys have some questions for him today, drop them in the chat right now or tweet at us at mbradycf. For me, at Poker with Risk. For Ryan. Corp Kool-Aid drinker says, wait, the guy who estimated I think he estimated 105K end result, and I promised him a free piece of merch if he did. I'm going to say this is close enough. Regardless, I mean, our counter might be a little off is the one thing, but still. I think it's close enough to give it to him, right?
Sounds about right. Seems like he's earned it.
All right, so we're just waiting for Doug to join us, guys. It will be shortly. Get your questions in fast. Fuck, marry, kill, Helmut, DNX, Bilzerian. I'm not going to do that one, as much as I love the spirit of it.
Have you had any of those on the stream thus far?
No, it's pretty tough to do, man. Tough to do. It's not going to make sense in too many spots.
Sure. What's the longest poker session you've ever played? That seems like one that Doug's been asked 100 times.
Longest session?
Yeah.
He actually, I think he wrote a blog about it on Upswing, funnily enough. He wrote one where like in the middle of the session, like someone comes back and like, so they've like went and slept and then had a day and then come back and they're like, wait, you're still here? Like, so yeah, I see if I can find that.
If you're a heads up player, those sessions can go real long because as long as if you're playing a guy you don't want to sit out at the other side of the table and he keeps playing, you can kind of be roped in to just play a long session, right? So whereas 6-max games break more often, so you're just going to have times to sit out.
For sure. Yeah, there's actually, I'm looking at this article now. It's called The Smart Approach to Losing Poker Sessions. 3 questions to ask yourself before quitting. Doug wrote it all the way back in, I think, like 2016. It's been updated in 2018, but yeah, he wrote it a long time ago. If you Google losing poker sessions, you'll find it. So if you want to read about Doug's longest sessions, I should say, and like sick comeback, stuff like that, check that out. It's also got some really good advice for when to wrap up a session. I just dropped the link in chat, but again, you could just Google losing poker sessions. It's the first thing that comes up.
That's a nice little Google marker to be the first thing that comes up when you Google losing poker.
We're the first for a lot of things. It feels real good. That's my main task at Upswing, basically, is, well, other than like content stuff, is the SEO. And it's so satisfying. Like no feeling in poker compares to like getting Upswing to be #1 for poker strategy or things like that. I don't even know if we still have that, but like things of that nature.
We've got a lot of talk of Doug's heads up game, but not enough talk about Mike's SEO optimization game. So give him a bit more credit for that.
Thanks, Ryan. Though I will say, saying SEO optimization is like saying ATM machine.
True. I'm trying to comment you, and you just come right. You're just Twitch chatting me. You're correcting the things I say.
Right. That's right. I mean, I'm in the headspace of like correcting people, you know. So
you're used to getting trolled, so you have to troll me or correct when someone else is.
Right. It's like when someone gets hurt and they lash out. It's like very much like that. I've been hurt a lot today by the chat, as usual. You guys are brutal.
Today, I find
they were on YouTube. They're always like really mean and unreasonable. Like, I shouldn't say all of YouTube. I don't need to generalize all of the YouTube people, but they have the people who are really mean and unreasonable. They're on YouTube.
You gotta have.
Maybe our mods are just much better on Twitch, and they just like snap them up. No offense to Benj. I know you're watching and you're the mod on YouTube. We appreciate you. All right, guys. Session is over, but we're waiting on Doug to join us for a chat. As always.
There's definitely some interesting hands from today's session. Like, he's probably not going to want to go too deep into the strat, but just like the one that sticks out still, even though it was right at the start, is the King 3. Just as much as he talk about that one is definitely interesting.
Yeah, that's a good one. And there he is. You're going to see Doug in a second, guys. He is just getting his audio, and there he is. Hello.
Okay. Yeah, how's it going?
Going well. How are you?
I'm good. I would
like you to meet Ryan Risk. He stepped in today when our planned commentator caught a bad case of the Rona.
Ah.
Yeah, a classic 2020 event.
You never want to catch a bad case of the Rona.
No.
Not.
Okay, here, I think this is working now. Let's see. Maybe. Huh?
It's
Huh?
loaded.
I think
We're
we
good.
are. I think we're
Yeah,
good.
there he is.
Okay, how's it going, guys? What's up?
It's going all right. That was an action-packed session. It didn't feel too good on this end because you were always in that like stuck six-figure territory, but action-packed for sure.
You have to say it was action-packed. There was no other way to put that. Yeah, we had some very interesting big spots to think about. Sometimes you just get those sessions where it's like you're cruising, and even if you win or lose, your spots are clear cut. And then sometimes you get those sessions where every situation is just like, okay, let me think about this. This is this, and then you're like trying to do your best. And like, I always feel like the sessions like today are the ones where, you really can show your edge if you're the better player. Win or lose, like I feel like it's the days where it's tough that really define heads up. And I hope that I made some good plays today. I'll have to find out later. There was a lot of really fucking shit spots.
We have.
Uh,
I really like the system of you just pulling up your hand replay and talking about what you're willing to talk about. But we do have one hand that we just like have to ask because
Let's go for it.
The king 3 of diamonds, 1.5x shove in the 4-bet pot, where he had 5-6 of spades on like 7, 6, 4, and you had a backdoor flush draw as well. Two-tone
Yeah.
flop. What are you willing to say about that one, champ?
So basically on certain boards, it's nice to have some all-ins in 4-bets as your bet size on the flop. Boards like this one are usually a bit better for the 4-better because you can have a lot of overpairs they can't have. And additionally, they shouldn't have too many hands that connect for pairs. I mean, obviously, they can have like suited connectors, maybe some one gappers, but they don't have that many. So you can work in some jams. I think my hand was like a reasonable candidate, and I was also not doing it that often, so I think it was okay. But until we put a little legwork in, I think it's not going to be too clear.
I think Mike actually predicted the all-in size like prior to you doing it. And the question I was kind of worried, like I know I've done a bit of work in these spots, and I was curious is there a point in his range where he's supposed to fold some of his weaker overpairs because your range has too much equity on that board? I don't know if this happens in heads up. I know it happens a bit in 6-max on some textures.
He not really, because he just simply doesn't have many overpairs. So
Right.
like you would just be folding way too high
Okay.
to be folding.
Not
So
much.
if you're trapping any overpairs pre and you face the all-in on the 7-6-4, you're pretty excited about the prospect of calling.
Yeah, plus, like the lowest overpairs have like a gutter, so yeah.
Also, like, when I jam, I'm more likely to have hands like 8s, 9s, 10s. And if I bet small, I'm more likely to have like jacks, queens, kings, aces.
Right.
It's on a sliding scale. So basically, when I do jam, if you have 8s, you have a gutter. If you have 9s, you beat 8s. If you have 10s, you beat 9s and 8s. It's kind of hard to have an overpair you're not super pumped about, It could be a punt. I didn't really. I felt like I needed to have some jams, and I felt like this hand was a nice candidate low frequency jam. That's all I can say. I do feel like a lot of poker, like the creative, like magic of it is kind of gone. It's like, so Doug, what do you think here? Well, I think the robot overlord would say, do this, so I did that. Well, why? I don't know. It told me to do it. Like, I don't know. Like, so I guess we'll find out later.
I mean, if he didn't have his hand, your hand has like a deceptive amount of equity against the rest of his range too, right? So.
I mean, it is kind of interesting. I mean, obviously you can just bet normal. It's not like you need to be jamming, and I bet normal a bunch too. And you could work in some checks. I mean, everything's on the table here. But usually when that situation, it's nice to get your hand in some different flavors, and I felt like a little spice ball, a little bit all in with this one might have been okay.
Makes sense. Forgot to ask you the customary first question. What was the damage this session?
Is that the customary question? What's the damage?
No, it's not always what's the damage. Sometimes it's what's the damage for DNegs, but right now
I see. I think we lost like 3 lines, something like that.
So 120. Yeah, cool.
I mean,
not cool, but
118, 119, something like that. Yeah, 3 lines. 3 lines is good. Yeah, it was To be honest, we had a lot of hands this session that were similar like spots for me. It was like me. Okay, I think I should bet X amount of the time. RNG bet. Fuck. Like back at the spot, and I'm like, he's just so full of it, and like he just thinks I'm so full of it. And we had a bunch of spots where I was like, I really don't want to bet this, and hit the RNG. I'm like, God damn it! And I like lined up the bet size, and I'm like, this is just fucking punting money right now. And I bet, and he thinks about it for like a few seconds. Call, and then he just has like some like bluff catcher that like should have a tougher decision, and it's just like. Then the next spot. Oh no, I really don't want to bet here again. RNG bet. I'm like, no, and then I bet, and then he like thinks call, and I'm like, and then another spot. I'm like, no, please don't let me bet here again. And it just happened over and over. I swear to God, man, I must have like the most like. I might need to invest in a new RNG because it seems like every time I'm like, all right, I'm gonna bet 25% of the time here. Bang! I'm just banging. I'm not even banging out 20. I'm banging out 1. So if it was like 1% of the time, it would have been like boom, in there for the 1 frequency. Yeah, tough. I also had some. I mean, he raised me in a bunch of river spots today, and like there were some tough ones. There were some ones that I think. I actually think I played. I think I played well today. I think I played good. I think overall I played good. I feel like the King 3 may have been a punt, but we'll find out later. There was a weird spot where like I 3-bet King 9. He called 9-5-4 rainbow. I bet 2/3 he called turn ace. Check, river deuce. And I blocked, and he raised like 75% or something like that. And I think I just have to call there sometimes. I don't think I don't think there's a big difference honestly between having an ace or a 9 there, or queens or whatever. And I think that not having like a 6, 7, 8 seems okay. I imagine if he's bluffing, it's going to be something like 6s or 6-5. I feel like having a 6 would be quite bad here. So a lot of times in spots like that, you just have to call stuff some of the time. So I just low RNG'd it, and my RNG fucking is like, Doug, I really hate you. We're gonna go ahead and just punt this off. I think that was fine. There was a 4-bet pot where I 4-bet ace jack suited deep. He called jack 9 deuce flush draw. He check called 1/3, turn queen, check, river 8. He bet like 40% river. It's not my favorite spot, but I think my hand is pretty reasonable as a call. So, there's bricked hearts, lower pairs that could. I think there's a bunch of hands that could consider bluffing there. To where I think like ace jack is probably going to be a little bit too high up. That's another one to run. There was a hand I 3-bet 8s. He called king 9-3. I bet small. He called turn king, check. He bets 1/3. I call. And then the river's a 3. I check, and he bets full pot. And I had 8s. Neither suited the king, so blocking king 8 entirely, and then not blocking any of the gutters, but I do block both backdoor flush draws. Is he floating those versus 28% of the flop? I'm not sure. Maybe like specifically 8-7, that could be close. So we mixed in some calls with that one, and obviously fucking banged that off because like that's just how we live life. And then this river, he had king jack. People probably care what he had in these hands. Yeah, he had king jack in that one for trips, and in the straight hand he had the queen 10. I'm not sure if I said that or not. In the king 9 hand he had 4-3 of spades, which is fine. I mean, I didn't see any badly played hands from him today. Which is usually par for the course with Negreanu. Like, I think you're rarely going to see. I mean, you'll see that. I mean, when you play this many hands, you're just going to see when you play this many hands publicly, you're going to get to see everyone's worst side. Because it's just, you get to see 29,000 hands with someone where they're all analyzed. You're going to get to see everyone's weaknesses, everyone's mistakes, So, of course, you can see big mistakes. But I think his play style tends to be less big mistakes and more like smaller mistakes of like, maybe playing too conservative or not going for it in spots enough or whatever it is. I mean, I think all of these hands he played fine. This flush hand, the last hand before we quit, I bet 9-3 of clubs on jack 5-4 clubs. He check called, turned 6. Sorry, he check raised. Sorry, not check called. Check raised. Small. I called turn 6. He bets 1/3 pot. I call river jack. He checks. I bet 2/3. He check raises. It's a tough spot. I called and he had 5-4, which is a
Good bluff combo from him there.
yeah. I mean that's maybe his best bluff combo.
Right.
So I mean that river spot's obviously very difficult. I had another spot with queen 6 of diamonds where I called a 3-bet. King 10-4, check. Turn king, he checks. I low RNG, bang it off. River king, he checks. I low RNG, bang it off. He calls me on 7s. So yeah, it was kind of one of those days, you know. It was like it was lose all of the big pots running bluffs that were either low frequency or maybe even higher frequency, but just didn't really get through. So we didn't win like almost any big pots. We won the kings where we held against 5s. That was nice. Once again, winning every single all in this challenge, which I'm really hoping to continue to do for the remainder of the challenge. And then the king 3 of clubs where I 4-bet. And I turned to flush and trapped, and he had 5-3 of spades. So that's kind of the rundown of the hands. You know, we play so few all-in pots. It's kind of crazy.
Just overall, or
yeah.
today's.
I mean both, but also today specifically. It's not been a lot of all-ins.
Was there? Did you have any misclicks today? There was Mike had a suspicion. There was one where you had a flush, and DNegs bet the river, and you snap called. You had like 6-8 suited in a 3-bet pot. Where you checked the flop. Ace queen was a straight, river paired the board, and he bet river and you snap called. Mike was just like thinking it seemed so quick that there was a chance it was a misclick.
No, yeah. I didn't misclick there.
Okay, so you just knew you were calling versus big bet. That was obviously the other thing, but it was you were so fast. I was like, how could he have even registered the bet size in that amount of time?
I mean, so like he has a smaller bet and a bigger bet. I know my hand is going to be a raise versus the smaller one, and a call versus the bigger one. So he bet the bigger size. I'm not really someone that like pretend tanks. You know how some people will be like, I'm gonna give him the good mannered like little tank ski here. I just like if I know what I'm gonna do, I just fucking do it. I don't think it's ever gonna be a raise on the board pairing over there. So I'm not gonna.
Yeah, for sure makes sense. I was just in the moment I was just like, man, was so fast. I thought he'd at least like sort of registered what the bet size was, but you did, like you said, you had realized that he has a bigger and a smaller. You saw the bigger quickly, registered it, and took the call. We did have some sort of off-topic, if you will, questions.
I made one mistake today for sure in like a bigger pot. I mean, it's just a single bet, but.
You want to say it?
Yeah, sure. I called to do it with ace jack, and called a very small bet on ace 3 deuce. Turn complete the flush with a 9. Check. I bet 2/3 he called. River 3. Check. I bet 2/3 he calls. I think that's got to be it. I think that's got to be a check. I was like right there in the river, and I was like. Usually when it's close, I go for the value bet or I go for the bluff. If I'm like right in the line or I go for the call, I try to do the thing where like I can win. Or I win more or whatever it is, but I don't think that was a bet. That was
Didn't
just
he have flop real small in that one though?
Yeah, he did 20%. That's why it's close.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets more close when he bets like I think he bet like 20% or something, but I still think.
I feel like it might have even been smaller. I thought he bet like an 1/8.
The other thing is, it seems like when he's trapping in that spot, you have like, it's going to be with the ace of hearts in some capacity. So like you basically mainly lose to 4-5, which is like not that relevant.
I mean, you also lose to ace queen, ace king. He can definitely bet check call those. And you also lose to some occasional flushes. I mean, I'll have to run it, but I bet you it's a mistake. That's my guess. I'm gonna bet you that I made a mistake there. But I think most of the other big ones, I feel like we're good. Oh, this 4's hand was tripled it off. I don't know about that one. That one might be another. I have to hit the lab on that one too.
You gave us a nice conversation point though of bluffing with small pairs and just the whole concept of it. So that was nice. We got to talk about that for like 20 minutes. So thanks for that.
No problem. Was it a good combo?
It was good. I still wish the bluff got through though.
Yeah, you and me both.
That's like the river. You just kind of have to sail it in with 4s when you get there though, because like you're out of a lot of natural bluffs on that river. So.
Yeah, I think his hand is a pure fold. I think. I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up. It's close. I mean, if he low frequency calls, but what really happened there? Let me tell you a little bit what happened there. DNX checked it to me, and I jammed, and he said, "This fucking guy is fucking full of shit again. This guy is fucking full of it." And he sat there for a full minute. This guy is fucking full of it, and he just yelling that at the screen. There was maybe a few cockfucks thrown in there, and then he pressed the call, and he's like, "I knew it." That's what happened there, and I was like, "Is my floors any good?"
Yeah, Ryan was like kind of positing like maybe DNX finds the hero call with Ace 2 there or something sometimes bottom pair, and you actually who knows? You never know.
I mean, if he had called and lost, that would have been the hand of the challenge. But I don't think that's happening here.
Yeah, that's more like a very sweet Linus crazy level of craziness there.
We don't have that gear.
No, not at all. I have a few like sort of not specifically about the challenge questions. If you're ready for it, ready? All right, so start with the funnest one. What's the most degen thing you've ever seen a poker player do live?
Well, let me think about this. So I'm not going to be a great candidate for this because I have not played that much live, and when I have,
wait,
a lot of...
let me back up and say it doesn't have to be like at the live table. It could be just like I talked about that one guy who did the have to stay in a dark bathroom for 1 month bet.
Oh my god, that animal.
Yeah, anything along those lines.
Why would someone willingly do that? Can you explain to me? He won, right?
I think he got bought out towards the end of it.
He bought out?
Someone bought out. They knew he was there, so
I see. He got bought out. Buyouts are always weird in prop bets. Like I always feel like when there's a buyout, someone's getting just like whoever is offering the buyout. I feel like buyout should never be accepted because basically if someone's trying to buy out of a prop bet, they think they're fucked. So like if someone's ever like, "Hey, let me buy out of this prop bet," you think that they think that they have much of a chance to win? No, obviously not.
But in this case, he gets $40,000 and no longer has to live in a bathroom, which a dark bathroom.
How much was the original bet?
I think 100.
Oh, he got scammed. How many days in was he?
I don't know.
He was like, supposedly he wasn't phased at all, and he was like, say, like close to 20 days in. He was just like cool with it.
Oh, he got scammed. Yeah, he got totally scammed. I mean, he didn't get scammed obviously because he accepted, right? It's not like a scam if you get accepted.
Yeah, he got rolled a little bit.
I mean, you done 20. Think of it like this: you done 20 days. By the way, I just want to put it out there. I could never do this, and I have no intention to ever. I would never do this. So, but we're gonna put that to the side, and we're gonna talk about it as if I was the sick fuck that would do this. Okay, so we're just gonna go in with that mindset. I'm a fucking animal. I'll live in the dark for fucking years. I don't give a fuck. Okay, this is me going in. 100K. Let's roll. 20 days are in. I'm 2/3 of the way there, and then someone says, "Hey, how about 40% of the money?" Like you're in such a better spot now than you were at the start.
Right.
I don't know. If he took that, I feel like then the buyout shouldn't have even been offered, because if he took that, he was gonna cave.
Yeah, perhaps.
It might have been less, but either way, like
less. Oh no, this is a loss. This is just a loss.
Loss.
Yeah.
I think we covered the degen topic enough that you don't have to pull a story out of thin
The
air.
other thing is like if I was gonna tell a degen thing, it's gonna be about someone notable, and then it's like I can't do that. So it's like
you could say unnamed high stakes pro or something like that.
Yeah, but then like other people might know, and it's just it doesn't.
It does get risky. You're right. All right. Well, I'll move on to the next question from Caleb, who's asked this like I think like 4 straight streams, so I had to fire it out for him. I just want to know if he ever will do those videos about life, politics, and religion again. I know it's not poker, but I just want to know if he will do those again.
I appreciate that there's someone out there that is rooting for that content, and at this point, I can't rule anything out. I can't rule anything out at this point. What I can almost certainly rule out is playing poker again professionally because I just fucking hate poker. But anything other than that, thumbs down in the chat. Thumbs down in the chat. Anything other than that, I could see doing. I don't know what that is. So I mean, there's a chance. I can't say it's impossible. The thing about YouTube, if you want to succeed, you got to grind, and you have to grind hard, and you have to put a lot of volume in, and that's nice when there's video topics you like to cover. Like my 10, 25 favorite videos on YouTube, I would do them again in a heartbeat. They were amazing. But then the bottom 300, okay, the bottom 300 I would not want to do again.
Right.
So
You
it's
talk-
like
A lot of pocket tens talk. A lot of talking about what you should do with pocket tens and what they should have done with pocket tens. It's pretty repetitive.
and like if you do news topics or whatever, you get some good vids. Like you bust up some scammers and stuff. That's good. Maybe if I did a channel where I just once in a while busted up some scammers, that might be the optimal play. You know, just like stop by every month or two. Like, what's Charlie Carroll up to? No, I'm just kidding. He's not a scammer. He just has his own thing. Like, we don't even have to go down that road.
Yeah.
Not a scam. Please don't sue me again, Charlie. Or is it again if you didn't do it the first time? I don't know.
Amazing. Somehow firing shots without firing shots. Do you have any questions you want to ask, Ryan? I got one more, but I'll let you cut in if you got anything.
Like hand-based question, but I don't know if you're like kind of over the strat talk at this point. You'd rather just like chill down.
I can answer a hand or two. Yeah.
There's one where you 3-bet flop came Jack 6-7 and you see bet small, like I think 30 to 40%.
Yeah.
Like Daniel took like a pretty big raise size in position, like bigger than in the spot, and you floated with a gutter, and then like we didn't get to see his hand, so you won on the river. You river to 10, check down. Just like what you think of his raise and what did he have in that hand?
He had king queen with a backdoor flush draw.
Okay.
I mean, if it's low frequency flop, it seems fine. And then, I mean, my hand on the flop mixes, and it should do some folding occasionally, I think, but it's going to mainly call, I imagine, even without the backdoor flush draw. It's going to be one of my better floating candidates. I'll have to like that. It might even pure call it, to be honest with you. And then, I mean, I think my hand's like not that crazy, right? Like, I mean, sometimes my hand could bet through, but the flop is a bluff if I want to. But if I do call, check, 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 it's just gonna be standard. I think the question for him is like, what's he do turn river? I mean, he turns an open ender. He doesn't want to bet fold. He could just jam turn. I mean, his hand's interesting. I mean, he could have put a bet on the turn. He could have bet on the river. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one. I'm not sure what his game plan is there. I don't really talk about it from my perspective, right? Like,
it seemed just like his flop raise size just seemed a bit big for the situation. I don't play that much heads up, but to raise that big on such a dry texture just seemed a bit off.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you can approach like flop raise with different strategies, because some boards are going to prefer. Like, here's the problem. Here's the meta problem. Every board could have a different optimal raise size, right? They do. They all have different optimal raise sizes. So how granular are you going to get, right? How granular are you going to get? And the thing is, if you want to get really, really, really granular, that's fine. But then you have to be able to execute it. So the question becomes, do you want to round things into some raise sizes that may be suboptimal for certain boards but are close, but are better on other boards? Or how specific do you want to get? And so when I see this raise size, I'm not like, I mean, the EV difference between this and like a small raise size is going to be almost nothing. So it's not like a huge, it's not a huge point really either way. I think either way, I think it's fine.
Cool. Anything else on your end, Ryan? I got one more that I'll end on if.
No, I think that was I think he touched on most of the ones we discussed.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good. Doug is quite good at getting all the interesting hands on his little run through, so it's convenient for us.
Well, I can look at them by pot size, so
right, exactly.
So I can get to the ones that you guys are actually like. You guys have to remember them. It's a lot harder than looking at a list.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so this last question was from chat, but I think it's a good one. What made you decide to play high stakes poker this year? I mean, you talk about how you don't have a great time playing poker. You kind of came out of the woodwork for this challenge, but you decided to play one session of high stakes. I think that'll be airing probably in January, I have to guess.
Oh, you mean the show? Sorry,
right,
I was okay.
Yeah, show high stakes poker.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, like I was not planning on doing it. I got asked a bunch of times. I said no every time. And then I had to go in to play Negreanu live, I think. Or did I have to go in for... No, I went in for the interviews. I had to go to Poker Central for whatever reason. And Maury asked me for like the infinite time. He's like, Doug, come over here. Doug, come over here. And I walk over. He's like, check it out. You want to be a part of this? And he like shows. He's like, hey, you going to get in here? You're going to get in here? I was like, fine, Maury. I'll do it for you. I hopped in, and plus I was already wiring to the casino for the DNX match, so I already had money coming in, and then he also really wanted me to do it, and I was like, all right,
Well, nice.
he can stick me in the fucking promo.
Hell yeah, yeah, exactly. You know that's what he was thinking. You know that's what he was
Yeah,
thinking.
just put my face in there. Oh, I played an amazing hand. I'm not gonna spoil it, but it's just an amazing hand that when it comes out on my app, it's gonna be a good one.
I cannot wait. For those who
It's
don't know,
gonna be
new episodes of High Stakes Poker every Wednesday on PokerGo. You do have to be a PokerGo subscriber. No way to watch them for free, as far as I know. Yeah, they're coming out every Wednesday. I think Doug played like the second overall session, and they're showing like 3 episodes per session. So Doug's match is probably going to be 3 weeks from now, approximately. But yeah, make sure to tune in for that.
I think it was the second to last or last. I don't remember actually. So maybe you're right, but I don't know. Are they doing it chronologically?
It seems that way, but you really never know. Yeah, take what I said with a grain of salt, fans, because
Okay.
yeah, they are.
It'll be a good one. It's gonna be a fun one. There's
I'm sure the hand will get.
I wish I could say more, but it'll be good. You guys will like it. It's a great hand.
For sure.
Maybe wow, is this true? Is this my favorite live hand I've ever played? It's up there. It's definitely up there.
Strong praise for that one. Oh man, do you have any idea what it is, Ryan? Did you happen to see rumblings of it or anything?
It must be good. He just finished saying how he hates poker. Now he's like smiling over this hand, so it must be a good one. So.
Dude, it's good. You're in for a treat. I'm sure it'll get clipped to death. So even if you're not a PokerGo subscriber, I'm sure it'll be on Twitter or whatever for you guys, and you'll at least be able to see the hand history or whatever. But anyway, so this will be this has been the third to last session of the year between Doug and Daniel. The next one's going to be on Wednesday, this Wednesday, the 23rd. Then they're going to be back next week after Christmas on the 28th. That's a Monday. They're going to play that one session that week, and then the rest of the week they're going to take off. And after that, do you have it ironed out after that, Doug? Is it going to go back to like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing? Once the
I assume it'll be Monday, Wednesday, Friday after
Yeah.
this. I would assume so.
So very likely the 4th, the 6th, and the 8th will be the first sessions of the year. But again, grain of salt on that.
I think we even said those are. So I would. The thing is, we're gonna hit 12.5 soon, like a few more sessions probably. So,
Right.
yeah, I think something like that. Man, I lost like almost every big pot today. This is like
You did. It was hard. It was hard to talk about the big pots. You lost them.
Felt like you were dictating the action, but just like every river spot you'd get to was either raise or snap call, or like not snap call but call from Daniel, and just
yeah. You know you're gonna have a bad day when you win 3 of the 19 big pots on one table. That's gonna be a hard table to win at.
Yeah, you got the best of them that one time you built a 400k stack, but today it went the other way.
It's just swings, man, right? Like you just it's weird that like every hand is its own instance. And so sessions are just a collection of instances. And so like we like create narratives off of these collections of instances that are just silly. They're all just instances. Today's session this happened, but the last one it happened.
We're like, humans. We love that stuff, man. We love labeling stuff. We love to make things rigid when they're not rigid. That's just how we work. But
yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like, he's had a couple winning sessions in a row, so it's getting a little bit tired down the stretch, which is probably good for the match as a whole, I would say. I think we still have like a pretty solid lead, but see what the thing is, like in heads up, 20 buy-ins is just not that much. It's just really not. You can go on 20 buy-in down swings all the time. So it is totally possible that in a month Negreanu is even. That's possible. It's not even like that crazy, like 20 buy-in swing. So I don't think it's super likely, but it's definitely possible. So you just gotta kind of keep your chin up and play good, and it's really all you can do. And just when you make mistakes, just get in the lab, try and fix them, and come back stronger the next session. And yeah, that's all you can do.
All right. Yeah, good stuff. I think those are some wise words to end on if you're down to call it a sesh.
Sounds good to me, guys.
All right, cool. So we will see you back here, guys, on the 23rd. That's Wednesday, 2 days from now, 2:30 p.m. Pacific time, 22:30 GMT. GG for the day today.